All right, how's everybody doing? I'm going to call this meeting of the Boylston Regional School Committee to order, please. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we've got some guests here, I believe, to go over, but first we want to start with our public comments. Everyone here to make a public comment, not part of the agenda. Yes, name and address, please.
Katrina Lawton, I live on Longleaf Road in Boylston. And I'm here tonight to ask you, the members of the school committee, to take another look at the budget you're proposing. I'm asking you to add a school resource officer to it. Our children's safety is a priority, and I've been speaking to parents in town and they feel the same way. We recently heard from our own superintendent regarding the need for SROs. It should be a priority as well in the town and school budgets. We keep seeing tragedies happen in our nation's schools. It's sickening and scary, and it's hard to be a parent of a school child right now. Sorry, I don't cry either. Jesus. Sending them off to school and hoping that you guys have done everything you can to make the school safe is daunting. Wondering who's going to protect your child if something should happen. We live in a different world when we were in grade school, and we can't wait for gun reform or mental health overhaul. We can't wait for someone else to hopefully protect our children. We can't wait until next year or later to figure out the school budget, because let's face it, it's never going to be good. Resource officers need to be in the building, and it should be a priority on the budget. I do know when people really want something, they can make it happen, and it should be prioritized. We need to be ahead of it. We need to be proactive instead of reactive. Don't think that nothing can happen in our small little town. It's our duty to protect them. They're our children. These are your children. They're in your district. Now is the time to add school resource officers, not tomorrow. How would you feel knowing you could have done something, but you didn't? That's all.
Thanks, Katrina. I have been almost 8 years old in the schools myself. I definitely hear what you're saying. I think we'll have a discussion about that maybe during the budget talk today. But, is there anyone else here for public comments? All right, does anybody have communications from the committee? Just one thing I want to note, I spoke with someone in Berlin who's very interested. If anyone out there is interested in putting something like this together, similar to what Boylston has with the BEF fund, sort of a separate fundraising group, and from what I understand, they raise money. Teachers can apply for grants for money for different projects and things like that. If anyone's interested in Berlin working on something like that, I spoke with someone yesterday who is pretty keen to help with that type of situation. So that's a communication I had. The only other thing I want to add in is part of this budget talk is it's not in the current budget right now, but it was the extra math teacher for financial literacy course. I know, Jess, you were pretty psyched about that. This month is Financial Literacy Awareness Month, so if anyone has any interest in that, come talk to us and let us know what you think we can do. The consent agenda as is, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Lori?
Second.
Julie, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay, motion passes. On to our reports, we have Scott Fuller and Matt Meekum here from the Fuller Group to talk with us about the program. Do we want to start that off?
Sure, thanks. So I'm Matt Meekum. A few months ago, I guess shortly, even before Carol, I guess was superintendent, Carol and I had a conversation about, I guess you could say was a little bit about budgets, right? It was about the need to kind of engage our businesses and our community in other ways to help fund the schools. And we, we talked loosely about, what was the best way to do that. I have a hard time starting slow, so we kind of dove right in. We had actually some immediate success with Northbridge Partners, being able to fund that building assessment at BES, so that was great. And then shortly after that, the Fuller Foundation, who Scott Fuller's here, will speak on their behalf, but graciously took a meeting with us to kind of go over the school's needs. It was with Carol and Megan and Nancy, myself, and Matt Rice is also here, plays a big part in that. And we sat down and had a great conversation for a few hours about the technology needs in the school and how, the Fuller Foundation might be able to help, how we were going to get to the end goal, which is, a 3 or 4 year plan, and also kind of how we got to where we were, right? Why was the technology so old? Why was the infrastructure so old? And, how are we going to prevent that from happening again? So, after Scott speaks, I think I have a couple more things to say about some other opportunities that we're working on, but I'd like kind of Scott to be able to say his piece and what he thought of the presentation and kind of where they're at.
Yeah, so we, in attendance, it was my mother, my father, and we listened, understood what was going on. One of the things that helps with the Fuller Foundation is a charter to give to the Worcester community. But because, I don't want to go into long detail, because Sybil Fuller, Sybil Flagg, grew up in Boylston, it's always been in the codicil that we will support Boylston. So it does allow us the ability to talk about it. So after the meeting, first of all, we were definitely in favor of the three of us that were there, because one of a major component of what the foundation is interested in is youth and education. So we brought it back to the board, explained what we had been through, and we've approved that we're willing to support. And now what does that mean? Depending on the size of the ask and whatever. Initially thought that the jump off point might be somewhere around 225, 230, maybe 250,000 range, that we would fund a third of it as a jump start. And the board has already approved that we are willing to do it. Of course, we have to get a request and deal with all that, but we're interested in supporting, and I think the only condition is that we know that it's going to happen, that it gets spent on that directly, and that there's a plan for the future, so that once we start it, it's going to be picked up in a part of the future. So there's a couple ways that we discussed doing that, whether the town kicks in a portion, maybe the community and the businesses around kick in a portion, and then we do the third of what we can add to it. So that's the basics of what we're going to do.
Yeah, so I think kind of, to Scott's point, and I guess kind of putting on, my selecting hat, I think seeing, some fight from schools to go out and find some alternative funding and work with us. I'm not saying go do it on your own. That's why we're here, right? It is to help out, but I think seeing that fight and kind of that passion to go out and do that is going to help twofold. One, we've already seen that it can be successful, right? We've already brought in some money, quite a bit actually. And I think when your board of selectmen in Berlin Boylston, when your finance committee from Berlin Boylston kind of see that, they're going to be much more willing to step up to the plate and maybe take some chances there when they're seeing that kind of extra effort out there and that fight to go out and find alternative funding. Now, to that point, I already mentioned Northbridge. We are in the process of, we've engaged Central Mass Regional Planning, and we're just about to submit a grant application that at least I'm cautiously optimistic on, for about $300,000 that will get fiber run between the three schools, which obviously is well needed. I'll attest to that. But one of the things for me, other than just the infrastructure and the one-to-one program that we're talking about, and obviously every school needs, one of the things for me that's there that isn't necessarily mentioned is it's going to allow us to potentially address that cell service issue within Tohoto, right? With repeaters one way or another. That's a whole other, it's gonna be another project, but it's something there that we have the backbone to do. Right now, I don't know if repeaters would necessarily work as well as they should. So, you know, the plan here isn't just a linear plan. It kind of has branches off that can be beneficial across the whole district.
So where does this leave us right now?
So I guess kind of what, and Scott, you should chime in here, but I think kind of what we're looking for is some sort of commitment from the school committee. So here's the thing, right? As Scott mentioned, is what their contribution would be kind of a jump start, right, in year one. And we know that there's infrastructure, there's switches and routers that need to be done. We know that there's laptops and Chromebooks that need to be bought. So I think what they're willing to do is help us kind of get a jump start there, but we don't want to have a jump start and then that's it, right? So we need to know that year two is going to happen. I think it's a 4-year plan total, right? Year 3 is going to happen, and year 4 is going to happen. And then it's in that budget, and it's a cycle where those laptops and devices are getting replaced every, I think it's 3 years was the plan. But people aren't going to be willing to commit funds if they don't know that it's going to be an ongoing program. So I think that's kind of what we're looking for is knowing that one is a commitment to that one-to-one program, and 2, that there's a willingness to kind of go out there and you know, fight and scrap for whatever we have to do to make that happen.
Carol?
Yeah, sure, a couple pieces to that. First, I wanted to thank you for coming in tonight, Scott. And I told your mom I read her book, the book she gave me, and it was great on the floor. So, if the school committee looks at its packet, there is the PowerPoint that we presented that day to the group. What we've talked about is creating a committee, a philanthropic committee that's devoted to reaching out to community members who may be willing to donate to us, who we haven't tapped before. I've mentioned this in the past here, and I've already gotten folks who've approached me that would like to serve on this committee, and I'm absolutely willing to, interested in leading the committee to do this kind of work. I've also was approached by a parent in the community who will donate her time to grant writing for us. So if we do see grants like that would help us, I think that person would be willing to do that work for us. In fact, she should be on tonight. I asked her to join the meeting so that she's hearing the conversation and she can start thinking about tapping into certain resources for us. So I think if we're able to make that commitment, the town is able to make a commitment and capital plan toward devices. I think collectively we'll be able to do this for the next couple of years. The other piece I was going to mention to you that Matt mentioned, that Central Mass Regional Planning Committee, one of the services that they offer is to sit with towns and districts to create a long-range plan for doing this work, so that we're not just every year thinking, okay, what do we need this year? What do we need? We strategize with them what we need each year, planning out, and then deciding what we're going to approach each year. So we have that plan in place. I think with technology in particular, we haven't done that well, which is sort of bringing us into, I think, the space that we're in right now. So I told that group that I wanted to work with them on creating that plan. So that's something else we could do going forward. And I think I would speak to what, Scott, you're asking us to do.
Yeah, you know, my kids are now 3rd generation Tonto students, so there's 4 members of our 6 people that have all been through the school district. And when we talk about technology and bring it up to the next level, we're very excited that is something that we might be able to support and help. And so I'm willing to, offer my time to help on that committee as well, and my sister as well. So I think if it can be done and there's a real strategy in place, I can't think of many things that would be more important to your everyday experience, especially in the year 2023 when technology is an incredible part of our lives. So.
That's great. I have a question. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. So I think that's awesome that the committee it sounds like coming together. My only question, I guess, to Scott would be, what happens if we get this committee and we cannot raise, let's say we can only raise $10,000, through all these efforts, then what? Does that mean, is the donation contingent upon that, or?
We have to sort of strategize how it's gonna be. We're gonna see what the town's going to do. First of all, I think we'll be very successful in an outreach program. So I'd be surprised if we weren't able to come up with what it is.
Okay,
But yeah, I think.
and I know nothing about it, I'm just
Sure.
asking, because,
So the support's not there, we haven't done anything yet. All we have is a verbal commitment that we're interested.
Yeah.
So as things progress, if the plan is ready to go and it's gonna go forward, right there, ready to go. If this looks like it's just not gonna happen and it's not sustainable, then we will probably say, all right, well, come back when you're ready.
gotcha.
Well, I think also, I mean, if you look at, we haven't even formed the committee yet, right? We've
Right, yeah.
talked about it briefly a few times.
Yes. Yes.
But, so on the Boylston side anyways, the Boylston Finance Committee has already committed to supporting the technology needs from a capital standpoint, right, for this year. And then, we're already working on, it's a grant, but it's still a significant amount of money for the infrastructure for the schools of, somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000, depending on how much of it we do. And that's not a insignificant project, and it's running almost 10 miles of fiber between the two towns. So I think, we've already, it's not fundraising per se, but we've already had some success there before we even really got started. So to Scott's point, once we really dig in, I don't think it'll be as difficult as we think.
And we're here for feeder money, so, right? This is to help get it off the ground. So if you decide that you've only got the ability to do this amount, but it's gonna go next year, we'll jump in with it now and get where it needs to be for this year, and then you pick up from there, or however it gets picked up from there. So we're here to support it.
That's great. And then, so would there be a deadline on when funds would have to be raised, or, and would the committee have to be, do we have to form a committee? Would it be like its own entity as like not a nonprofit, so that the donations could filter through the committee, or?
So I'm not 100% sure, and I don't know about the deadline. My deadline ends up being your deadline.
So okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so whatever it is determined needs to be done, we set out, get it done, and come up, figure out where we're at.
Gotcha.
So part of the original 3-year plan was to kind of update those computers and those laptops slowly. How much did that end up being in the capital requests this year? I guess, because I know there's IT supports, like 134 for DES, and so I kind of lost track of what we did get. Yeah.
So bear with me for a second.
Because I know like Berlin Memorial is 120,000, DES is 135, part of the capital request, and then Rotondo 254,000. I don't know how much was infrastructure, how much was laptops, like how much we could say that we already have part of that.
I'm almost there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's what we have.
Yeah, it is.
While they're looking on that up, Scott, I apologize, I didn't come up to you before the meeting and introduce myself, but it's a very generous offer. I think the committee definitely appreciates any help we can get from anyone, especially this situation here. The one question I had, just from the school standpoint, I understand the rules that your organization follows is committed to Boylston. When it comes to Tohoto, we've also got Berlin students there, so how is that going to play into this, or how does Carol, we thought about that, or what would be the situation there?
Yeah, my understanding is we look at it as a
It's
district.
just a district.
Okay.
Just,
All right,
you divide it how you like.
thank you.
So what I can tell you is for like BMS, it's one, well, let's do Boylston. It's in there as lumped. It's Chromebooks, new phones for district offices and the sort of equipment that needs to be upgraded. I mean, we have the backup in the office, but I don't have it with us.
I'm just curious if that could say, well, we, this year, there is that amount of money already going towards those.
If I remember right, and obviously, no one hold anybody to this, but I think the number was about 225.
Yes.
That's what's in the presentation.
Yes.
For Boylston.
Yeah.
Boylston's Tohoto piece, I think.
I mean, does anybody else have any questions from the committee? I mean, I think it's something that we're interested in, for sure, absolutely. Like, if we need to form some sort of subcommittee to work on it further, kind of, you're always working, meeting with them.
Yeah, I would very much like to do that. And I think, Mickey, you asked a question about if we have to create,
501c3,
right?
so that the donations could filter through there, and then how that would work to get them back to the school or the town. I don't know.
I'm sure that probably the organization will probably determine how they want to handle that, right?
Yeah, because we've donated through Tohoto before, and I can't recall exactly how we've done that. If it was through
The PTO.
PTO, I think.
That we talked about, yeah, it would have to go through BEF, or at least I think that's what your parents had said, that it would have to go through PTO or BEF.
Yeah.
It has to go through a 501c3, it can't just
Correct.
go right to the school, right?
Okay.
So I think there would be benefit to creating that subcommittee as a 501c3.
Right.
So as far as,
They're not gonna let them.
Can't do it under the school, it has to be its own separate committee, like BEF is its own separate,
Yeah, it has to be like
501c3.
a foundation.
So it'd have to be a foundation, so it could have, yes,
Right,
yeah.
right, that would work.
so this is the start of the conversation officially here in public. I think the commitment is here from the committee. If you guys are more comfortable, if we took a formal vote on committing to forming a subcommittee or whatever we need to do, I think we're on board for it, unless anybody else has got anything. Should we do something like that?
Is that something that would,
Or should we just say, we have a budget subcommittee already, assign this project to you guys and
Yeah,
work with Carol and Nancy and Scott and Matt to go forward and figure out, at least to figure out what you need and come back to the full committee for whatever vote is needed.
yes, yes, I was gonna offer to be on the committee,
Well, it's just assign it to the budget.
and I might be able to, or I'd have to see, but I
Yeah, we'll
would be
look
able to do that through my work.
Right.
Donate the services to the school and
You
set
can
everything up and
CPA
do
and all.
tax return and all that, yes, 'cause I
Okay.
have the software and all that, the capability.
Is that
So
something that
we could do that.
sounds good? Does
I think that's fair.
that sound like a plan, or should we do something more formal, or,
You good with that? Yes.
Yeah, it would be Julie and I.
yeah, with Carol and Nancy and.
Okay.
Just one other point to make is that, as with all the talk about budgets is, just because we're able to get money for technology doesn't mean it doesn't have a significant impact on the rest of the budget, right? Because
Right.
maybe that frees up money, I guess not when it's a capital expenditure, but in general, it can free up money for other areas, right? So you have to kind of look at it from a big picture there and say, okay, well, look, now we have these donations, what can we use this money for that we're gonna use that for? So, it can be pretty impactful, I think, if it's done right.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
That will be huge, because I think we definitely have a good chunk in there for the technology, so if we ended up getting donations for that, then we could reallocate that for other needs.
but we wouldn't be able to do it before.
I don't know if it would work.
I think it's a long term.
Right,
No,
this would be a
I'm
long
saying
term.
it wouldn't affect this particular budget.
I don't think so, that's what I was trying to get at with the deadlines and everything, that's what I was trying to say, is like, I just don't, there's no way we'd be able to have the committee and everything formed.
Well, why don't we just take that away then? So the budget subcommittee will work with
Yeah.
Carol and Nancy, Matt and Scott, and as big as I can thank you to Scott and Full Foundation and Matt for doing what you can to help us out. Earlier, I mentioned someone I spoke with in Berlin yesterday, and they're similarly interested in doing something to help with organizing committees, groups, foundations, whatever it's going to take. I think something that's new, we've talked about this a little bit, about this particular committee being new and doing things in a new way. I mean, there's still a traditional way to do things, but, this is one of the things that I haven't seen in the past 3 years since I've been here. nobody's even talked about anything like this, so. Thank you very much for coming in, we really do appreciate it.
Like, I just want to, Matt Rice had a big purpose as well. He was-
Thank you to all of you, and,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that too, yeah.
Look, the point of it all is that we would, I think, would all agree that we'd like to have our school be as technologically advanced as any other out there, so that our kids are coming out and heading out into the world, having had every opportunity against the competition out there, which is all the other schools in the state. So if you find a way to do that, it's a worthy project.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited to work on this.
All right, thank you very much. Next on the agenda is Chair's report. I really don't have anything that hasn't already been said, that won't get said during the budget meeting, so we can skip that. Caroline isn't able to be here tonight. She emailed me earlier. She didn't have too much. She was working on trying to get some other members of the senior class to come in and speak to some of the things we've been talking about, but just didn't work out for tonight, so maybe next time we'll have that, so she's not here. Subcommittee updates, budgets and safety, have you guys met?
No, we've not since Saturday, March 9th.
We've got enough talk about that thing
Yeah,
recently. Student success and technology, we did meet just before the budget hearing that we had. We gave the update then, we had the language that we added to the resolution, that's been sent off to the state reps. So that's their policy. Do we have an update, Lori?
Yes, so during policy, we discussed the cell phone and the smartwatches, the student tech discussion. And we had policy IJNDC in there versus the handbook. And what we were looking for was input from the principals as to whether they felt cell phones were disruptive, smartwatches, anything like that, if they felt that, I guess we just want to know what your thoughts on them and how they are in the classroom and whether you feel like they're an issue or socially, academically.
Well, in middle school, they're not allowed to have them all day, so that's no problem there. In the high school, there's only supposed to be some between classes and at lunch, so it shouldn't be distracted. Not to say that people don't probably use it, but, so I think the way we have it set up is, not a problem, but I'm sure there are some kids that, that might be looking when they're getting notices or whatever, so is it a distraction? Probably, but I think that's why we have those rules in place.
Well, I think a parent had brought up the question about the watches, that, sometimes they want us because they, but you haven't heard anything from teachers or anything?
No, I haven't heard any complaints about the smartwatches. I mean, obviously from MCAS, they have to be removed and things like that, but I haven't heard problems about that in class. We haven't had any disciplinary issues.
And as far as disciplinary concerns, I can't remember the last time I've had a student come down due to having a cell phone out in class. Normally, the teachers are very vigilant and observant in the classroom and manage it, or they send it down to the office, and I haven't seen anything in a while. But I know at iWatches, they can hide that a little bit more, but I haven't seen anything.
And I think that was a specific comment too with the elementary school with
Yes.
smartwatches, but also like maybe step counters or something. Is that an issue?
No, it's, a lot of kids, especially fourth and fifth graders, have the smartwatches, but again, it goes to distraction. So they're using their watch for watch things. We don't have a problem. You do occasionally hear a kid who's got a cell phone in the building. The other children like to tell me, because the rule is that if I see your cell phone, I'm just going to stay in my office for a while. I threatened the June box, where it stays in the box till June, but so far the June box is empty.
Can I ask a question? Could, I see it very differently in the schools, I think they are a big distraction, like 4 kids, 3 around town, and I hear that from them and families as well. Could the teacher somehow be polled to see what they think about it anonymously, so that they feel, that they can speak freely about it, and then we can look at that input? Because I know when I went to parent-teacher conferences, I asked, and every teacher I visited said, it's definitely a distraction.
Yeah, a lot of them have those like pocket holders.
Yeah.
And they have it, so they can be a distraction, but if you take the steps, you make it so that they're not.
Sure.
And so I haven't heard complaints from them, but I'm happy to ask.
I think, that might be a good thing to have to do. I don't know what to put it out there. I'd be happy to make a Google form for that and give it to the teachers.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear it at the elementary level too, because, you know, like I know, you know, my daughter just got a Gizmo watch, but it has school settings and she's not thrilled today. I can't do school settings. But it can only do emergency calls out, so, you know, I actually asked a friend today, like, hey, she's in Pepper, and she said that it has to be like on school mode throughout the day. So it was very specific.
I think a parent brought, Carol and I attended a student council meeting, and a parent said that there was an issue, I don't know if it was at Boylston or Berlin, where a child took out a smartwatch and was recording or filming another student. I don't know which elementary school it was in, but I thought they said a 7-year-old, I think they said second grade, because I was like, that's my son's age. So I don't know where that happened, maybe it was BES, if you didn't hear about it. The other thing I want to say about the cell phones too is I subbed one day at lunch and we did a tour and I didn't love how they were all on their phones at lunch. It made me a little sad. But like,
I would see all of them on there.
and maybe it was just the days I was here and it's definitely,
Some of them for sure, because they're allowed to, right? That's the time.
right, and they're just like kind of alone in their phone and it just made me sad.
I mean, because we actually have volume issues on there just because they're talking so much. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so they're definitely.
Well, the 6th grade lunch was, they must not be allowed to,
Oh,
right?
they're not.
Yeah, because they were running around and,
Yeah.
but it was the older kids, it was like, just some of them. But I guess otherwise, I don't know if they'd be sitting alone or just kind of sitting there by themselves, or if they would be trying to socialize, I don't know, but it was just very different from what I experienced when I was in high school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
5 years ago, it was different.
Maybe we can get Caroline's perspective on this too.
Yeah,
I'd love to
she
hear what
has,
she said.
she has mentioned in the past,
Yeah.
as part of their, it wasn't a technology issue she was framing it as, but it was, when the class is done or when they've got some free time after a quiz or something, instead of socializing, everybody just whips out their phone. Right? So
Yeah.
she has mentioned it as a problem before, but we can ask her.
Yeah, I
So-
think just to add to that, I know, I mean, I'm so anti-cell phones in schools, but, as we all know. But, I think this is, I think it is a problem everywhere. I don't think it would be just exclusive that we have an issue here. I think we have to just figure out a way to manage the problem. I think that's probably step one.
So I think,
yeah.
I mean,
No, I'm just saying, like, I just don't think it's enough to say we don't have a problem.
Julie, we had talked during our policy meeting about maybe a field trip to one of those schools that does the little pockets.
Yeah, that is a great idea.
so I think, so
See how they do it and see what it is.
I think the point of this item here was to sort of get the feedback
Yeah.
from schools. Now you're gonna do the Google form, so
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
we'll hear about that, we'll talk about that at the policy meeting, and then maybe bring this policy, adjust it as needed, bring it back at a future meeting to have a fuller discussion.
Sounds good, thank you.
All right, cool. Lori, the
Yeah,
evaluation.
superintendent evaluation, just an update, we do not need to do one this year. I know, right?
Oh my
Lisa, you don't know, but you have no idea how much of a gift that is. I did talk to Dorothy from MASC, and she did say that we don't have to do one this year, so I'm going to try to use the time to see what we can do with the model that we have to make it easier. Carol and I have spoken about how she could write her goals, similar to like the superintendent over in Shrewsbury, so that it would make it easier for us when we go to evaluate instead of having to research. And Carol's a phenomenal writer, so I think it's gonna work out really well that we have the time to work on this, and you have the time not to do anything. Oh my God.
The best news.
There are no days. A lot worse.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you so much.
So, next up is Carol, it's all yours.
was trying to think of how I wanted to open this, my report tonight.
Thank you.
Because they-
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. You know, we're gonna talk a lot about the budget in a few minutes, but I wanted to reiterate my deep concern about this budget. If it does not go well, we have lots of consensus going on and not so much in different places all over the place. It has always been my fear, my concern that this budget doesn't pass in some form. And we will run the risk of cutting teachers. That's where this will come from, up to 11 to 15 teachers. And that's how this will play out if we don't close those gaps. I've sent to the school committee what that will look like as far as lifting teachers, starting from the bottom up, starting from staff that was hired, the latest staff. Because we're regional, that could come from any of the schools, depending on where that seniority falls for them. Technically, we don't need to notify teachers who would be cut until June. According to that documentation, that's the wait. Some schools send out pink slips to everybody, some school districts. I'm not willing to go that direction right now, but I do also don't want to cause any folks not to have that sense that that is potential for them to get that lift. So I've been talking with the admin team about that. We're starting to have that kind of conversation. And Nancy and I have been looking at the individuals that would affect. So it's real, it's out there. I'm deeply concerned. I've been trying to protect the staff from this experience. I just don't know where this is going to go in the end, right now. So I just want to bring that out on the table. It's very real for a lot of people at this point. So, so that's where I wanted to start from. Yeah, go ahead.
So to clarify, you mentioned if cuts happen, it's based on a seniority, whether
Correct.
there's been confusion in the last month. Firestorm comment that John set off in the last meeting. But some folks out there think that, okay, if one town passes the budget at one level, the other town passes the budget at another level, and whatever that happens to be, it requires cuts in teachers in one town versus another. Some folks are concerned if, let's say for Berlin, if the teachers are cut or added in Boylston, why does Berlin have to pay for that part of it? How do they swap schools? If one town funds all the teachers they want to have, but those are the teachers that end up having to get cut because of seniority, do they lose their teachers, or do teachers come from somewhere else? How does that work?
Yeah, it's really all of what you just said, Mark,
I
because.
said a lot.
Yeah, well, it is, because we don't, right now, we don't know, we do know, we have an idea where teachers are coming as far as their hiring days. But if one town doesn't vote, the other does, whatever the combination is, if we don't have the funds to support that budget, it could come from either, any of those three schools. Most likely, it would come because of the licensure around teachers and other positions, psychologists, school counselors who have very specific licensure. Those positions would have more opportunity to stay put. So the high school, middle high school level, because of the licensure, would most likely stay in place. If there's nobody who can replace them at this point, a lot of the cuts will come mostly at the elementary level. And that could happen, yes, what you're saying, that it could be one school over another losing teachers because of the ramifications of the budget not being passed in both counties.
So for example, let's say, just hypothetically, Boylston decides to fund all the teachers that are currently there, but Berlin doesn't. You calculate 10 teachers' positions need to be cut. Seniority-wise, let's say 8 of those teachers maybe fall in the Boylston Elementary School, even though they've been completely funded by the town. Those 8 teachers are gone. 2 of those teachers comes from Berlin, but Berlin didn't fund it, so all the cuts really need to hit Berlin. So that's 10 teachers, or the 8 teachers that were cut Boylston need to be replaced by Berlin teachers, is that what you're saying?
It could happen, yes, it could happen that way. Yeah, so yes to the first part, and then depending on how that unfolds in Berlin, as far as the numbers in classes, we have to look at that too. We may at a point have to shift some teachers over from one school to cover for the other. So that would increase class sizes potentially at the lower school.
So if we have to cut 15 teachers, at what point are we legally allowed to close the school because we don't have teachers?
Yeah, I can't answer that right now. I don't know what that would look like. Yeah.
So how many teachers
It
are in
depends on how we
Berlin?
sort, yeah.
12?
Well, 12 general educators, yeah, a couple of special
And if we have to
educators.
cut 15 of them, Or,
I'm not sure that that's quite how it works, right?
well, that's what I want to clear up. because
Yeah.
There is confusion about how that works.
So
Yeah, the regionals.
we're a regional school, so there would be a decision on where things would be cut.
Right.
My firestorm was if Berlin, so for example, we have a real small K class coming in. Berlin decided we can make it with just one K teacher. That extra person, because they have a ton of seniority, would probably still have a job in one of the two schools. While in Boylston, because they have a lot of new teachers over the past year or two, they would be the people who would get bumped. Because it's literally a list.
And you said something else too, John, that I would also put in there. We could also look at the periphery and look at support staff who are also there as part of that effort. So it's not only just teachers, it could be programs, it could be grant funded positions and shifting. There's so much shifting that will take place. One of the things, within that mix is also the fact that if that's set up for those teachers or whoever the support staff and whoever would be leaving, we could potentially lose them because they'll go elsewhere to a position. So we face a significant hiring impact if we have to bring people back, depending on where the budget goes down the road. And it's passed later on in the school year, I think toward the end of the school year, or if we hit the 112 form.
So what you're saying is, like any company that anybody might work for, if employees see uncertainty in the near future, they might start looking before they even know what their situation is, just so they can have some certainty.
And I did experience that years ago, early as a principal. There was uncertainty about positions, and every year teachers worried about having cuts or being cut. Some of my new and best and brightest, potentially the best teachers came in and left because they were so worried every year about being cut. That they wanted to plan their stable district too.
Can I just make a note that anything I just said is purely hypothetical, just for discussion and clarification purposes. I have no idea what's going to happen. I do not know that 15 teachers are going to go or that we're going to close the school, so nobody go on Facebook and say that I said that.
But it's
Alright.
complicated.
But we need to have the discussion to clear it up, because there is confusion.
Right, and most of them also too, just I want to let the school committee know, we are having these discussions. We're starting this, we really have to be prepared for anything. So that's happening, that's why I put that information in there for the city and the process.
Thank
you.
And Carol, one other thing, is there any type of emergency funding that we could apply for the state if we got to, I just don't know how we would cut 10 teachers, I don't even know how we would cut 5 teachers, at what point in time, you can't have 40 kids in the class, you just can't. So like, if there's some type of emergency, there's nothing from the state, no. And I just don't even know how the school would function at that point.
And if you've been reading the newspapers, there are, I was just on a Mars, that's the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools. There were colleagues on that, multiple colleagues who are facing exactly that right now. Who are facing the horizon potential that the situation exists, so it's very much out there.
Can I ask a question? You know how we have a level service budget, and then we added a few things, like the assistant principal and 3 assistants in Berlin Elementary, right, and the behavioral analyst, right? If we went back to just the level budget without them, would we still have to fire teachers?
If we went back to a level.
Yeah.
That's a complicated, there's a complicated answer.
complicated.
That's not an easy answer. We don't know.
May I recommend that we let me go through my stuff, and we're gonna go over figures and all that fun stuff, and you'll see where we stand. And I think that will help answer your question.
It depends on what happens at town meeting.
Do you want to
There's no
update on
guarantee.
the visits?
Yeah, I can mention that. So we had a chance in the last month to go to Boylston Garden Club, 19 Carter, we were there twice. And I think that's in Berlin. I think that we had a good turnout for the 19 Carter, and I think that our messages were received well. I think that went a good ways in I don't want to say influencing, but at least informing citizens that were there. They were very interested in our district improvement plan, took the budget packet, and were asking some good questions. I would just mention one of my favorite and most challenging parts of that visit was the fact that there were 3 students there from Tohoto who are seniors and had some very pointed questions to ask me about what I was planning to do for the future of Tohoto, and made suggestions about what they thought needed to be improved. So I take that to heart greatly, and that will be a discussion for the Tohoto folks going forward about how we can address those issues. So that was meaningful. There's one other thing I wanted to, well, there's a couple of things I just wanted to make you aware of. My report is a little, just kind of informative pieces in here. I wanted to mention, we have an opportunity for at least 2 students, if not 3, to go to a STEM event in Boston on May. We have a gentleman who has from Berlin. He's a resident, he's a pilot. He has done this in the past, not during this school committee's tenure, but he has taken 2 students to fly from Pittsburgh Airport to the expo and back again. He'd like to also ask us again if we would be willing to do that, because it's a unique situation. I wanted to bring it before the school committee so you could hear about our students flying someplace one day, although I have to say that Patrick Minahan has sort of set a precedent for that already. He's taking the students in airplanes out of Worcester Wright Airport down to New York to take them on field trips. So it's happening, again, something different we've never had before, right? So I wanted to bring this forward. I sent you information about that, about him, about that trip. And he just wanted to ask really for the blessings of the school committee. I would make sure that he's coordinated, sorry, he knows that, fingerprinted, and parents would give the permission. We have that already permission for him. So if you felt there was anything else I needed to find out, he should be watching tonight. I did invite him in to join us. So if there's anything else you want me to ask him, or if you're comfortable or not.
So it'd be basically a field trip, they would follow the field trip protocols?
Yes, yeah, it would be a field trip, yes, yeah.
It's not an overnight.
But not, no, it's not an overnight at all, it's a couple of hours. It's a field trip for few students that the Tohoto would be looking to who was chosen or who would be interested, or however they would set that up. I don't know, Sally, do you remember how that was set up last time? I know. We'll have to go back and look at how that was done. Peter said to me that at the time he took those particular students, a busload of Tohoto students also showed up. So there was an opportunity for those students, more students to go as well, which I like that idea. And I have to find out who was responsible for that trip.
Okay.
Oh, you mean they went to the exposition
By bus.
by bus and 3 kids would fly? What type of plane is it? I mean, is it gonna be like a chopper, or are we talking like well, do you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, yeah.
You see what I'm getting?
Yeah.
Like, are we gonna, like, is it like a jet? Like, what kind of, I mean, I'm just a little nervous about one of those small gravity planes, putting our kids, am I the only one thinking that way? You know what I'm saying? Okay. I'm trying not to be negative, do you? Are you?
I think it's awesome.
It is awesome, I'm just wondering, is it a big
I think as
plane?
long as parents are.
The parents-
I guess, as long as the parents are
You know,
okay with
there's-
it.
Don't
Like,
like, I
like,
see you.
All right,
You're not in that plane, but I mean.
Like, I'm not the only plane, but somebody else might want to.
Well, I mean, it involves a plane, so
It buys weight,
There's
so
just
that
waivers.
gives you an idea. You have to be, it has to be, under a certain weight for the plane, so to give you an idea, it's not a large plane. It takes about 3, maximum of 3 students, which are about adult size.
Yeah, as long as parents sign off on it, I'm all about parents should make that decision.
He also, I mean, Peter also offered to get other pilots to fly students. I'm not so comfortable with that because Peter is a resident, he's a town resident, you know him. I'm not so sure to bring other folks in at this point. Maybe that's my personal caution.
Well, I also noted in your report, you said that we're gonna follow all necessary core fingerprinting procedures and everything. So even though he's a parent, he would be,
Oh, absolutely.
you would go through the vetting process.
Yes.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity.
That's great. That's very cool. What an experience for a 16, 17 year old young.
So we have the invitation, we don't have,
It's not an overnight.
it's not an overnight, so we don't typically vote on,
Planning on, so it's gonna be something for policy too, eventually, like,
yeah,
putting
I
a
mean,
plane, like, is that change it?
that would fall under transportation, right? We have field trip transportation.
Yeah.
Protocols.
Well, this isn't the end.
I mean, I think it's just.
But don't we have to approve the van with the 6 people and the teachers?
Yeah, I think that's,
Plane, you don't have
that's
to.
different because they're driving themselves.
Probably should be.
Well, he's a licensed pilot, correct? You're right, that's the
So
difference, yeah.
if we were to vote on something right now, I don't know what we would vote on because we don't have anything to look at to vote on. I think if there's the correct protocols to follow for field trips, transportation.
Yeah.
Parents sign off, there's no liability issue with the insurance companies or with the attorneys.
Do you want me to check with the lawyer?
And my own wingman, Nancy, is we should keep her head too.
Definitely need to approve it.
Yeah.
But and you need more info.
That's what I'm saying, we
Right.
don't have
Maybe he
anything
should
in
come
here.
in and kind of,
I
The
can
date
buy
on
it,
here.
people that will join us.
Yeah.
But we're not meeting, it says on Tuesday,
Right.
May 9th, we're not meeting again until after that.
oh,
Our next meeting is
I
May
was, at
16th.
the end of this meeting, going to suggest May 2nd, but,
Oh, there we go.
so that will work.
Yes.
If it happened.
Based on what I'm missing, what you had.
Is that gonna be too tight though for them to
Because it's not
plan
an
that?
overnight.
I don't know.
It's the plane, it's the plane, it's the plane that is the question. If the MASC policy site were up, I'd look up the policy right now, it's not up, so.
Do we have an as needed 5:30, May 1st? Is that?
It's not an overnight, you're right.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, it's. Hold on. Yeah. You're right, but hold on. The only question is taking kids up in a private airplane with a resident, but he's a licensed pilot, so.
You could approve it and then we could look into it if. I don't know.
Motion to approve it pending all necessary insurance and liability issues are sorted out.
Yes.
Could I have a motion to approve this field trip pending all necessary liability and insurance issues are taken care of before it happens?
So moved.
Megan?
Second.
Lori? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Yeah, I think it's, it passes, I think it's an incredible opportunity. If everybody involved is on board, everything, I's are T'd and crossed and T's are dotted and all that, good to go.
Right, because for flying, there must be some type of, the school, like Mike's point, liability. It has to-
There's previous, I think there's something on the drive about this previously, but it was nothing for the current situation, so.
And it was, and this, the last time it happened, I'm not even sure when, before the school committee, the school was
Yeah.
sitting at the time.
Yeah.
So
I feel it falls under a field trip, it's not overnight, transportation's not normal, not usual,
Right.
but. Okay, so,
And one more question, if
Yeah.
like it's bad weather, they're gonna cancel the flight, right? He's not gonna fly in bad weather.
Well, he's a pilot.
So he would know.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
he's,
a.
I'm just saying, I don't know this person personally, but you have.
Yeah.
He is his own.
That's why I know, I wish he was.
Yeah,
here to-
I mean, some of them are like fearless
Yeah.
now, you know?
Is he in relation to the scholarship?
That's a different,
Yeah.
I
did email Dorothy just to double check.
And then the only other thing I would mention to you, just is take a look at the Good Friday calendar consideration. I am probably not recommending either way, but I want to keep an eye on the pattern of this. The number of staff out on Good Friday, the number who took a full day versus the number who took a half day of Good Friday off in the past couple of years. And then the one particular day that was Good Friday that fell the day before vacation was a significant number out, and that was a full day, so.
I'm curious, how many teachers are taking any religious holidays or vacation days on Good Friday this year? Do you have that projected? Have to put into
We don't know yet, yeah, they're putting it in
Oh, no.
now, yeah. Yeah, so I don't have final numbers on that, or I didn't, because I will find out that soon, this week, but.
I guess that's true.
That's true.
Right, Friday, so you wanna add Friday,
Hold on.
Good Friday as a day off, is that what you're saying?
No, I don't, and I don't even know if we want to have it off at all, or we wanted to consider it as a half day. I don't have a recommendation at this point, I just want to be mindful of the numbers and the patterns here, to keep an eye on, because I don't know if that's something we would consider, this, I mean, if it was.
The other schools have Good Friday off, that's what I thought.
We used to.
Yeah, they do.
Some
We had half
schools,
day,
yeah.
we had every, yeah.
Some schools observe all the Jewish holidays as well, and then they're in school until the end of June. So I mean, it's just, it's a preference, it's a preference, you know.
Some districts do PD day, or they have PD half day that day, so, I mean, it's something I can even discuss with the union if that's something. But I wanted to bring it to your attention as you're making a decision on the
And
calendar.
when I said no, I didn't mean no, like I wasn't in favor, but I meant no, that's not what you were saying.
Yeah, my computer just died, so.
Is there any policy that you don't feel like serve really important things on those holidays?
We typically would schedule an MCAS on that day because we don't, it depends on how many students and teachers would be out that day. It wouldn't be in our best interest to schedule on those days. Even the days, I would have to say, and I don't know if John and Sally want to chime in, the day before the vacation. We would never want to schedule an MCAS on that day. Because flights are cheaper that day.
Thursday.
Well, not to belabor this, but that's what happened. So then it was a Wednesday issue, and then everybody, families started leaving on Tuesday. It's gotten to the point where now they're leaving the weekend before the Thanksgiving. So
Oh, yeah, people go away when they feel like it.
when they go,
Yeah.
they go when they go.
Yeah.
So
They can
I don't know
afford it.
what.
It's when they can afford it, yeah, so.
Alright.
no.
So anyway, that's.
Okay.
just wanted to-
All set, all right, Nancy, you can just go through the budget.
Okay, I just want to do a couple updates before I touch the budget. I just wanted to mention busing. Our bus company had an unexpected passing of one of their bus drivers in Berlin, and I just really wanted to express my sincere condolences. I know it's been really tough over at NRT, so I just wanted to mention that. And in terms of transportation, for Berlin especially, we've returned to where we were earlier in the year. We're in a difficult situation, we're short a bus driver again. I spoke with Jackie over at NRT, she's actively looking for a driver. They feel like they have someone who is a very vital candidate. If all goes as planned, they plan to have this driver in place when we return from April vacation. I say to state with caution, because we know how easily things can change with transportation. So until we have a driver, Berlin 1 will be doubled with Berlin 3 for Tohoto, and Berlin 1 will be doubled with Berlin 2 at the elementary school. They're going to start trying to run the Tohoto run 15 minutes early ahead of schedule, and hopefully the BMS run can start closer to the correct start time. But most likely it's going to run a little late. So I'll keep you updated as things progress, but that's where we stand right now. One other thing I wanted to announce is that after April vacation, we will have the capability to have text alerts as an option for notifying families in regards to bus delays or other issues that may arise. So parents will be receiving a text on or around April 12th in regards to opting in or opting out of this option.
Great.
The facility assessment for Boylston. I'm happy to report that Habib and Associates, we received 3 quotes. Habib and Associates came in at the lowest. They are going to be starting on Friday, April 17th.
Stop it,
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah. So at the next school committee in Maine, I'll be forwarding a request for the acceptance of a donation that we received from Northbridge CRE for $35,000 to cover the cost of the assessment. Originally, this donation was going to be given to the town. Just this week, we were notified that it's given to us, so I'll forward that at the next meeting for your approval.
Can I ask you something, Nancy?
Yeah.
Do you know how much lower they came in than the other two? You don't have to dig, it's fine.
I can send it to you.
Okay.
I can send it to you, yep. Quickly, I wanted to go over the fiscal year 23 budget. I feel like we've been so consumed with the 24 budget, we really haven't touched base. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick update. In all three of our schools, there's two line items that we are over. The first line item is legal. So in BMS, we're currently over by $1,300. In BES, we're currently over by $2,750. In Tohoto, we're currently over by $2,500. I do anticipate these expenses to increase because this is only invoicing through January. In reference to my expense spreadsheet, this is under the category of instruction and structural support. We're also going to be over in our insurance line item. We learned earlier in the year that we had to purchase a multi-factor authentication for all of our devices. If we didn't purchase this, we were going to lose our cybersecurity coverage. So this wasn't budgeted for. So cost-wise for BMS and BES, it was an additional $3,000, and in Tohoto, $6,000. So, and these all fall under the categories on the spreadsheet of maintenance and operations. So looking at the schools quickly individually, under BMS, under instruction and instructional support, we currently have a savings of approximately $100,000. I anticipate the savings to decrease as these line items are not encumbered. There's some line items that are not encumbered, like professional development, supplies and materials, and now we know that legal is going to go over budget. The overage should be able to be made up within this line item since we're forecasting to have a savings due to a teacher being currently on leave. Under maintenance and operations, we currently have a savings in BMS of approximately $29,000. I anticipate the savings decreasing as there's line items that aren't covered, like above with supplies and materials. As the committee is aware, this past Friday, our elevator broke. So we recently reported $3,000 just for the company to come out and diagnose the repair. So once the diagnosis come back, I'll make sure I come back and update you, and we'll have to look at it and see if it's worth processing an insurance claim or moving forward, depending on how much it costs to fix it. Under Boylston Elementary in structural support, we currently have a savings of $69,000. Again, I anticipate this decreasing for unencumbered funds, such as professional development and supplies and materials and the legal that I mentioned. And one thing to note is we have an ongoing personnel matter that has not been resolved, so the forecasted savings amount is unpredictable at this time. We are forecasted to have savings in special education transportation and also in our benefit line item. These savings will be helpful in offsetting repairs. Repairs keep popping up at Boylston Elementary, and we're actually just about over that line item. So it's good that we have these savings to help with that. And lastly, in Tohoto, under instruction and instructional support, we currently have a savings of $150,000. Again, I anticipate this dropping due to unencumbered expenses in the legal. We have savings. We also have savings due to at the beginning of the year. We had a large difficulty in finding personnel, especially in instructional assistance. Other services show a savings of $157,000. This isn't accurate. This is because athletic coaches are not encumbered. But we do have quite a decent savings in special education transportation. So right now we're fortunate to have savings in the areas at Tohoto as we have had a large number of repairs, and we're currently over budget on the repair line item by $700. We've had a lot of repairs in electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. Carol and I spoke earlier, and we would like to invite Dan, our facility manager, to a future meeting and review all the repairs at all of our buildings, so you can kind of see where we stand. Overall, I think we're in a good position as we currently have enough funds in line items to cover some of our overages at this point in time. I'll continue to update you as we move forward. Fiscal year 24 budget. So in the fiscal year 24 budget, we have received the recommended budgets from both of our towns. So you'll see that there's two spreadsheets. There's one spreadsheet that says the town of Berlin, and there's one spreadsheet that says the town of Boylston. Start with Berlin. So you will see that Berlin's recommended budget for BMS came in short by $732,715. And Tohoto came in short by $7,328. When I say short, I'm referring to the budget that you approved on March 18th.
Yeah.
After reviewing these details and speaking a lot to Kristen, the town administrator over there, and Carol and I speaking to the chair, we asked if we could propose the following. We proposed taking an additional $225,000 from school choice to BMS, taking an additional $7,328 from school choice to Tohoto, and taking an additional $125 from circuit breaker. We went back to the town, I went back to Kirsten, and asked if, with doing this, would they consider helping us fund the remaining $382,715? The FinCom from Berlin and the select board met last night, and they voted to agree with the proposed budget amendment, including the $382,715 in free cash, contingent upon a vote in favor by the school committee. They also would like this to be the final change that you make to the budget. So if you look at the spreadsheet, it breaks out everything that I just stated. I know it's a lot, so please ask me any questions. And on the bottom, you'll see I forecasted out school choice for BMS, for Tohoto, and circuit breaker that will show you with the additional allocations where we will stand. So just to briefly tell you, at the end of fiscal year 24, with increasing our allocation, we will have a balance of $256,000. In Tohoto, with increasing our allocation, we'll have a balance of approximately $396,000. In circuit breaker, we'll have a balance of approximately $355,000. Does anyone have any questions for Berlin?
So by doing that, you decrease our ability to react to unforeseen expenses within that next budget year.
Yes. Yeah, we're definitely lowered our own funds. We lowered our revolving funds. Two things to keep in mind. The forecasted amount that I have in here for circuit breaker is $488,000. That's based off of the 75% reimbursement. Forecasted out all of the current tuitions that we have for this year based off of the same level service funding for circuit breaker that was used in fiscal year 22. And it does not include a reimbursement for transportation because that's still unknown. If we got the same amount that we got last year, that could vary from anywhere from $65,000 to probably $80,000 additional. And we did apply for extraordinary relief for this school year, which would have to be used for this school year, but it would help offset the budget for next year. That hasn't been returned back to us at this point in time. It's a very difficult one because you get one lump sum and it depends who applies for it and it's the whole thing. Maximum we could get from that is $160,000. So those are two revenue sources that are out there that haven't been confirmed, are not included, but are possibilities in circuit breaker.
So anywhere from 0 to 220,000? Is that?
Yep. And school choice is based upon the recommended school choice enrollment figures that were presented tonight or approved on.
At Tohoto, what about BMS?
No, school choice.
Right,
Additional, right.
So that's my concern there, is the BMS number. I mean, that, in 2 more years, it's gone. So this is like a emergency situation, one-time shot.
Yep.
Like, there's no doing this again next year. At least not this way.
And you're kicking the can down the road.
Yeah. I mean, bad fine.
Yeah.
Or what's the other option?
Right, well, that's exactly right. This is the solution here.
You guys, were you guys at the meeting last night?
Yes.
Do they understand that this is like we're using up the majority of these funds? They know that?
You do.
So what happens next year?
We still have reserves next year. So,
Well, we can't deplete the whole.
I mean, we're going up.
No,
It's gonna be depleted.
And we're using-
District.
And BMS.
We're using.
Well, that's what I'm saying, so what do you do next year?
So I've got people adding new positions.
I mean, the other option is we can just like
Where
Yeah, I just
you
fill
know,
the mess with a bunch of.
It's not
school choice.
sustainable.
no,
I don't wanna hire and then have to.
We could fill BMS with school choice. I mean, we've already got 22 kids in the classroom and they're built for 18, but so this is something we would need to vote on to accept or to adjust our,
so how it would work, you know, the budget's done.
yeah.
Everything's been processed, the warrants,
This doesn't change the overall number, it's just
this doesn't change the overall approval that you approved on the 18th. It
back and forth
changes,
where it comes.
it changes the outline of it, of the allocations that we will be using. It doesn't change the total figure.
Right.
But you'll
It's
have to
just
stand
the-
up on
It's
town
just the
board.
accounting.
Yeah,
Debits and credits.
It will help the townspeople to see that the school is meeting
And what was the assessment a little bit, right?
a bit, right?
Oh, yeah.
400,000.
and I think unprecedented times sometimes take, unprecedented solutions.
Right.
It's not like we're draining it down to zero.
Should we hear about, should we vote on this now or hear about Boylston first?
Why don't you hear the whole package
Alright.
first, right? Okay. So. So Boylston recommended budget came in short by $256,880 for Boylston Elementary. And came in short by $13,887 for Tohoto and $7,824 for our capital at Tohoto. We made a similar proposal. I spoke to the FinCom chair over there to use additional funds from school choice for $63,887 and an additional $100,000 from circuit breaker to bring the deficit down to $106,880. They declined the proposal. So how I see it in Boylston, the school committee, saying it the way it is, has three choices on how to proceed. You keep the budget as is, according to how you approved it on May 18th. This total deficit of $270,767 versus the town's recommended budget. You use additional funds to allocate the budget that was presented as a proposal to Boylston and eliminate $106,880 to clear the deficit, or you eliminate positions that total the deficit of $270,767. Well, pretty much what you're down to in Boylston. The spreadsheet shows you the forecasted amount for school choice and circuit breaker with the changes of the allocations that were proposed.
So the 270,000, that's from the BCBA, the 3 aides, and part of the 60% of the vice principal? Is that what that is? Because they.
That would bring us below level.
Yeah.
It's that and then some.
It's that and then a little bit more.
So I did invite Seth and finance committees to come tonight if you want to say anything. If you want to be part of the.
We always like to defer to the finance committee.
So the Boylston Finance Committee feels it's fiscally responsible to be using essentially the circuit breaker money and the school choice funds and using free cash to reduce, to fund your budget, because it's unsustainable. Next year, you're gonna have to come up with those funds plus whatever your additional increase is going to be. And that just means that next year you're gonna be exceeding your levy limits. We don't feel comfortable going down that path. Okay.
So the meeting that I attended to begin, originally you had funded what's the one time? The capital request with free cash, and then you look like more comfortable with the at-level budget. So is this, so then you've changed your mind then to, I just am trying to understand, I'm sorry.
So we had that joint meeting with your committee and our committee and the Berlin Finance Committee. And the level funded budget you presented at that time is the budget that we ran with and we are comfortable with, and that we have built in and approved. And subsequent to that, our understanding is you have revised your budget, and that is what we have grown uncomfortable with. I actually wasn't aware that there is a difference in the capital of $7,000, but I just wasn't aware of that.
So the budget that he's referring to is the budget from March 6th, when we all met.
Minus the 3 aides, the BCBA, 65% for Boylston, and then 65% for.
I would have to go back and look, I feel like it's changed so many times.
Those are the
Sorry.
additions, yeah, at-level plus that.
I'm not positive.
$270,000 seems high for those 3 additions, though.
Feel it, yeah. Well, we had 3 IAs at 50,000 each.
That's 150, and then a quarter of a BCBA.
32.5.
Right. Oh, yeah, 65.
Oh, I know.
So that's 65, so 150 plus 65.
Yes.
Plus 0.65 of the Tohoto principal. Yeah, you're right.
So this leaves us with
Yeah, it's just those 3.
50, 380.
Yeah, that's the 3 position. It's
So
those,
it's the 3 additions.
it's the additional positions
Yeah, that
that
makes
you
sense.
approved on
Yeah.
the 18th.
So school choice funds at the elementary school, they're gonna run out in 2 or 3 years anyway. If we don't do this,
Even if we do nothing, the elementary, yeah.
yeah,
runs
so
out, yeah.
has anybody looked forward to 3 years from now versus 2 years from now? Probably not. Can we fit more kids in BES? School choice?
We can't put any more kids in that. Might be able to move the preschool. Do like a full-time preschool there and charge daycare rates.
Private.
Yeah. But you could probably only put 20 kids in it.
Adam really wanted that. He used
Adam
to
loved
talk to Ace all the time about that.
I'm curious though, like if we were to, we've already, town warrant's out, so how would that?
Well, it depends where you're going. If you cut positions, it's done on the floor.
So you would amend the movement or
There's nothing you can do now as far as the warrant is concerned. I don't think the Boylston, I could be wrong.
That's not true. The
No.
Boylston warrant won't be finalized until, basically Monday the 10th, so that's
Oh, okay, so it's different.
just.
It's different.
Okay.
So it'll go to print just after that.
Well,
So whatever you finalize tonight, at least in the Boylston side of things.
it'll be right at town meeting.
Would be.
Yeah, we have to
set
go
the
on
next
whole
one.
town with the same budget. So,
I'd like to point out that
Yep.
the Boylston Finance Committee has not yet voted to approve or disapprove any budget. We met last night, decided to wait to hear what comes out of this meeting tonight before we recommend to our selectmen what we are or are not in agreement with.
Oh,
So it's verbal support
It
of
must
the
be.
at-level.
okay. I misunderstood.
Right.
Yeah, we both misunderstood because that was not what I understood from.
We had a meeting where we were all in agreement that your level service budget from March 6th, whatever that date meeting was, that we were all in favor of approving that, if that's the direction you go. if this committee goes into another direction where it's higher than that, we're less likely to approve the budget. But the vote has not been taken because as far as I know, the
This.
budget's not set.
I understand.
But if we cut something, so if we cut the principal or the BCBA, that affects Berlin as well,
Yes.
That's the problem.
Right, so, yeah.
which they have already said, you can't change this again.
So the only thing we touched,
It's
you want,
like, it's like a maze and I can't get
you
out.
want to go with Berlin, with what the whole proposal, then the only things on the table are IAs.
I was in kindergarten today, and there was me and a para came in to help. Like, I just don't even know how they can do 20 with no.
Yeah.
I went in to help. My daughter's class is lucky that there's a lot of stay-at-home moms or moms that work part-time that can come in and help, but like, we can't rely on that. I just have a really hard time supporting cutting aides for kindergarten, especially when I'm like literally going in and helping and seeing what it's like.
And those are the cheapest positions as well.
They are, I mean, could we get away with 2? Maybe, I don't know, I think it depends on final enrollment, but if those classes are bigger than 20 kids, I just don't even know. This year, they're like 16, 17 kids.
What is the projected enrollment? Is it like 20 per class?
I think they're already close to 60, Lori. They could get up to 10 more.
They're at 57.
57, but they could, I think Dawn Marie had said they could get up to 10 more historically through the spring and summertime. So they could be up to they could be up to close to 65.
With the proposed pulling from the revolving funds and the school choice, would that hypothetically cover those 3 aid positions?
We're short, well, the way I have it worked up right now, we're short $106,880.
That's dipping into school choice though.
That's taking 50,000 from school choice at BES and an additional 100,000 from circuit breaker. An additional 13,880.
We can't take 50,000 from school choice from BES year over year. So this would be literally a Band-Aid for this.
There's not enough funds to even fund that 106,000. I mean, it's just.
Right, but if we take 50 this year, we can't take 50 next year and year after. To Mike's point, in 2 years, this runs up.
It's done it's done next year.
Yeah, what do we spend on?
After next year.
It's 100, right? So that just extends us for, based
A
on,
year.
based on the trends here, a year or 2.
I mean, like,
There's
my
gonna be a
problem,
solution put in place.
yeah, my problem with dipping into the school choice funds is what happens if, so we can't do this year over year, so if we don't get funding from the towns in upcoming years for these things, then what, do we fire the positions? Like, I don't
Yes.
understand, yeah.
Yeah.
Or we have to eliminate something else, right? I mean, that would.
That's why I said you're like kicking the bucket down the road, because
Right,
like you're solving it for this year, but you're not,
Right.
you know.
And we just heard the Fuller Foundation say we want our kids to be competitive when they leave our school district, right?
they look.
No, I'm
not
just
that
saying, we just heard them say that. So if we can't fund the schools, are we competitive?
I think the hardest part about the kindergarten piece is that that's like the foundation. So everything that happens that year, the first grade teachers build on, the second grade teachers build on. And we've talked, I mean, you've seen it, they're like feral cats, like you're basically trying to get them to sit in a circle, keep your hands to yourselves, friends, and, you know, like, while you teach them their letters, and it's more than just, you know, but that aide was someone who could monitor those kids and help them, and it's really tough because we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and that's really what, I don't know if anybody else feels this, but
Yes,
our job as a school committee is supposed to be to advocate for what is the best, what the needs of our students are. But at the same time, we're residents of a town that's hurting financially, and we don't want to take all the money from everybody. So it's like, God, I feel like I'm in a voting booth, like, oh, I don't like this one, but I don't like this one. It's like one of those things where it's really, really hard to decide what's important and what's not. And it's like those aides, I just don't, I'm worried about, do we have any data? Well, we wouldn't have tonight, but on what the difference is in the test scores from the kids. I suppose COVID would have screwed all that up too.
yeah, it's hard to.
Yeah.
Figure that out.
But I mean, to the other point too, is we don't know how many kids we're gonna have next year in kindergarten. You know, sometimes you do have a small year, I know there's a lot of building and apartments going in, so it's probably less likely, but you never know what next year is gonna bring. I think what we're looking at is just, I agree, it's fiscally irresponsible, but at the same time, God, I think about those 57 kids and what their year is gonna be like. And the
Yeah.
teachers.
They won't, the risk is maybe some of those kids might not be able to learn how to read in first grade because they're not learning their letters. I mean, when I go into help in kindergarten, I go in for literacy. So she can work one-on-one with some kids and, I mean, not to get too graphic, back in October, there was a child that pooped himself and I had to take him to the nurse because the teacher can't leave the class. I mean, that's what you're dealing with when you have 5-year-olds and you have 20 of them in one room with a teacher. And there's nobody else in there. Obviously, if there's a special ed kid, they might have a one-on-one, but in my daughter's class, that's not the case. It's just really hard because I'm living that, so I support that. I support the aides.
So we have two things. So we have the Berlin numbers that are adjusted. It sounds like maybe we can get on board. Berlin town is in agreement, the finance committee is in agreement. There's still a number in Boylston that's unknown, doesn't sound. It's up in the air from before, you know. If we make the adjustment that Nancy's proposed here, it leaves a difference of 106,000. Or we can cut 106,000 of other positions in Boylston Elementary, or we can cut 270,000 of positions at Boylston Elementary.
So Carol, I don't know if you guys know this, and I know Dawn Marie's not here. How many paraprofessionals do we have in Boylston Elementary? And how many are one-to-one specific versus how many are general? Oh, Janelle, sorry. Do you know that?
I do, I just need a moment to pull that.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting anyone to answer today, but it was kind of in the back of my head, like, worst comes to worst, can we reallocate some of the, no?
The paraprofessionals are specifically for special education, and they're paid for out of special education funds.
So we don't have any other general paras in the building?
We do not.
I mean, how they're budgeted is according to this.
According to
Right.
special education service delivery, depending on how much time a particular student or group of student needs services in a particular classroom. So Boylston Elementary School has 14 paraprofessionals.
And they're all dedicated to certain students?
I don't have the breakdown in front of me of one-to-one, so that is a mix of either one-to-one paraprofessionals or paraprofessionals that are supporting more than one student at a time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because you're gonna have 5 year to year, and it can change.
It can change moment, I mean, it can change day to day.
Probably change.
It can,
Right, because if kids have to go out of district mid-year, and then I noticed, like, I've seen some paraprofessionals subbing, but then I'm thinking if they are a one-to-one and their child is out sick, then they're free for the day, right?
Right, in the event that a one-to-one's, the child that they typically are working with is out, then that paraprofessional is reallocated for the day, either to a classroom or they may substitute for a teacher. Right.
Or they can do general, they can help with stuff.
They
but that would
tend to
only
be
if-
redeployed, yeah, they tend to be redeployed very quickly.
Yeah, but that's only if somebody's out sick.
Yep.
So we have no general, and in Berlin, how many general one? And I don't know, do other towns usually have paraprofessionals like in kinder, first and second, or how does that work?
I don't know what other districts in general like have, but I mean, it depends on the district.
Yeah.
What they want to.
Right. No, I know for a fact Shrewsbury has paras in their kindergarten, general paras, because I have a friend that does that. But I don't know if they have them in other grades, because I've even heard of teachers saying I could use a para in first or second grade.
Are there any more?
But then within the programming, the staff, then we cut staff a program, so that hasn't helped.
I mean, if you delete the BCBA and then also the vice principal, that should hypothetically get you down to 150,000, which would be 50,000 from school choice and 100 from circuit breaker, which is not sustainable, but it will at least cover us for next year, and so there wouldn't be a deficit, if I'm saying that correctly.
But then Berlin,
So we have two options right now, so do you want to take this town by town? So in Berlin, we can choose to do nothing, go as it is, or we can choose to vote to adjust it to what Nancy's proposed here.
which is to use,
Use the funds, yes.
and if we don't do that, then.
If we don't do that,
Berlin
we're
will not
off
use their free cash.
$750,000.
Yep, they won't use their free cash if we don't.
So if we're gonna cut 15 teachers at 270,000, how many are we gonna cut at 750?
I can't even imagine. School will be closed.
Does anyone have more specific questions for Nancy?
Yeah, I mean, if taking the, for 35% of the BCBA and then also of the VP at the vice principal, I mean, what does that 740,000 turn into? I don't, right, but it should be less, right?
But not a lot.
But then you're giving up. I don't know, I can rerun it.
Because that would have been at the app level.
I feel like I say it, Julie. Say it, or I'm just in Lori's camp, and we have to, our goal as school committee members is student achievement. And the can has been kicked, not to use that phrase again, for so many years in this district. It just has, and it's nobody's fault. It's just is what it is, and the school's been very fiscally conservative, I think, year over year. I have friends that teach kindergarten, and they think it's insane that there's no aides in kindergarten classes in our district. We have one BCDA when we're coming off of COVID. That's just not acceptable for our kids. It's just not. Any town. We have a middle and a high school year, and even though it's been a middle and a high school forever, there's different needs in the school. These middle school kids are 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. If we went to other districts, they have a middle school that has an administrator there. They have a high school that has an administrator, it's different needs. So these positions, while they might seem like they're not needed here, they're so needed. They're so needed. So what we do have responsibility to take care of all our townspeople. We have a massive responsibility to take care of our kids in our district. So I would advocate for leaving everything and taking it to the townspeople, putting it on the floor, having the discussion with your townspeople. It's not enough to
As
just
is
have it
meaning,
here.
leave a $700,000.
No, you need to accept Berlin's offer. No, I would say with Berlin.
Okay, yeah, that's
And
not
leave
as.
the 100,000, right? That is less.
Take our chances in Boylston with
I'm not even saying
100,000.
like take our chances.
Julie, that almost sounds like a motion. Is that a motion?
Yeah, because I think that, I mean, we're all different boards here, and everybody has different philosophies, and I know we've made great progress with these boards, but I think we need to hear from the townspeople and listen. Where do they stand? And there can always be a motion on the floor to lower the budget, right, that's proposed, to then shrink back.
So do you want to start with the Berlin proposal?
I think so, that's something to add.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
I didn't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's okay.
Yes, please.
So the first thing I want to say is I think it's, excuse me, important we keep everything in perspective. First of all, I don't envy, everybody's position here. These are very tough choices, and I certainly applaud everybody. And I agree, we want to create the best educational environment we can for our children. It's also important, like I said, that we keep perspective, right? Because yes, these are hard decisions, but the other things we have going on the town side as well is, for example, our town's growing. We all know these are the things that are putting strains on our schools. But it's putting strains on other departments as well. We have a police chief who needs new officers, wants a new lieutenant. That's been pushed aside temporarily. Our fire department needs a new fire truck. The town's gonna have to finance a big portion of that because a big chunk of the free cash that would have been used for that is I believe allocated to the school. Seniors in town have been asking for stuff for years that's been pushed aside for the time being. So I just think it's, and again, I'm not saying that to necessarily persuade anybody one way or the other, but I think it's, it's an important component that we need to think of this really holistically when we make these decisions. The second point I would say is, the finance committee has said in Boylston at least that they would support a level service budget. At the beginning of this meeting, everybody's saying, last thing we want to do is cut teachers. I'm under the impression that the level service budget, there wouldn't need to be any cuts made. I think that's why they supported it, right? And I think that's presumably why the selectmen would support that as well, because again, we all believe in having a strong educational system. I think that the other point is if you go to town meeting floor, there's no saying what happens at that point. If you have the town proposing one budget, the school committee proposing another budget, at that point, I mean, anything's possible. And anybody who knows anything about town meeting knows that anything's possible, like I said, and nothing's predictable. And the last thing I think anybody wants to see is to have town meeting go totally in the opposite direction, and the budget ends up going, getting past it far below what would be level service spending. Again, I know those comments probably don't make anything any easier for anybody, but I think it's important to kind of have all the pieces there.
You do bring up a reminder actually about the police officer with the SROs. We were gonna mention that.
And that's just one more component to just make it a little bit more complicated for everybody. So.
But yeah, so as far as SROs go, I think it is part of the police budget, not the school budget, because of the way those officers are employed and managed. Is that correct, Carol?
Yes, yeah, that's my conversation I had with the chief. And I've been talking with the superintendents in other districts to find out about how they're paid for in other districts. But it is in fact under the purview of the police department, because they supervise, they allocate them for the year, then they take them back when we have vacations, summer vacation, holiday vacations, they utilize them for additional services. And so I wouldn't evaluate them, so it's really not under our umbrella to have SROs, because I understand that. It makes sense to me. I certainly wouldn't want to supervise a police officer, nor would John like to supervise a teacher. So that's what we're calling.
It was part of the budget that was requested from Boylston Police.
Yeah.
Recall that correctly?
The SRO was part of the budget request. The finance committee basically kicked it back because we feel that's something that needs to be talked about between the select board, the police department, and the school committee, because while it is part of the police budget, obviously it affects the school, and different people in the town might feel differently about having our officers on the property. So the finance committee didn't feel like it was our place to say whether or not there should be an SRO assigned. We don't have a problem with the financing side, but that's a discussion that we think needs to happen between the school, the police, and the select people.
And I think part of going forward, how we're talking about all three groups, both towns, select and finance and committee, starting this summer, maybe, whatever the date ends up being, but talking more year round. I think that'll be maybe priority number one on that talk. But back to this situation.
So could I make a motion to approve the, go ahead, Nancy.
I'm talking to Kristen, give you like 2 minutes.
Okay.
I'm just, sorry.
Okay.
Well, does anybody have a question?
About anything. How was your day?
I have a
She's
question.
typing, I got the dots.
I have a question. So if it goes to town floor as is, both communities, and on the town floor, there is a conversation being had, and it seems like the community in Boylston, I'll say for example, doesn't seem like they're in favor, because it hasn't been recommended by the FinCom or the select board. And through discussion, it maybe is too much. At that point, if
there's an amendment, would at that point, the finance committee stand up and recommend the amendment without those three positions? Yeah, I was wondering if someone from finance committee at that point would stand up and support it, or would at that point it's gone, nobody would do that?
I don't know if that was understood.
Well, if they, I don't know that they can answer because it's only one member, so I don't want you to speak on behalf of your committee.
Theoretically, we would,
Disregard.
All right,
No
so
changes.
nothing from Kristen.
No changes no matter what.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
theoretically, if we didn't,
So
if we didn't approve your budget, that you end up
No changes.
Yes,
on the town floor, we could propose an amendment, alter the budget. We'd likely look like the budget you proposed on.
right, the level,
66 grants.
No changes.
right.
Well, she just said no.
That's what I'm saying, so if we got to that point, it would be recommended, or you would support, somebody would get up and say, to the town, you know, this is something that the finance committee does support.
At that point, the finance committee probably make a motion on the town floor to propose that budget.
Right, you know, what happened?
She's gonna call Scott real quick.
Got it.
So
All right,
here's
so
here's
Nick,
what we're.
you had a motion. You were making a motion.
So I, just so you know what I'm doing over here, I asked Kristen, you know, they said no changes. But if you guys decided that you wanted to eliminate the position, go back to a full level service budget, they'll still be lower because they didn't give enough funds for a level service budget, but and they would still help us, but it's in their favor because they're taking less from free cash.
But it's
So
not in the
would they
student's
be against that change?
But it's not in the student's favor.
I'm not, yes, but I'm just
Right, she's looking at financially.
yes, looking at it financially, where I know they said no changes, but it's kind of in their favor, so she's calling Scott real quick. If you guys even want to consider that.
But it's just gonna help more like free cash, right? It
Right,
will,
it
it's
would
not gonna
help-
help our school choice fund. There will,
It wouldn't help us, but it would help
No.
them.
all right, so
So you guys do, that's,
It wouldn't change taking more.
I mean, we're gonna have a huge problem.
the only thing it would help you do is, and then I'll stay out of it, is help on the Boylston side if you wanted
Yes.
to cut anything. That's what I was
And
trying
what-
to
yeah,
get,
no, I got what
maybe
you're
what you
doing.
wanted.
But there's no guarantee even in a level funded budget, even if FinCom recommends, ultimately it's up to the townspeople on the floor, I think that's.
So we have a budget we've approved, it's going to town meeting.
Yeah.
Our question tonight is, do we want to make a change based on what we've heard from Berlin and Boylston? So Megan, you were about to make a motion, you still want to do that?
I don't know how I feel about dipping into school choice funds, but I feel like it's kind of home play. Go ahead, Laurie.
So I think Matt had his hand up too.
Oh, yeah.
Something to add that shed light.
We're gonna, it's getting late, we're gonna shut down the conversation because we're starting to go in circles.
I just want to say, so just kind of backing up to how tonight started with the conversation on engaging the community and all, and businesses and foundations and all that. You know what, kind of for lack of a better term, a showdown on town meeting floor is not going to advance that. I can guarantee you that. In fact, it's probably gonna bring it the other way. So I just want to put that out there to keep that in mind, that all of us here want a sustainable budget, and meaning that we're gonna be able to continue to add what you guys need as we, as the years go past. But, going in this first year when we're saying, hey, look, we're all working together, not really though. It's not gonna have a good look, to the townspeople. And will it pass? I don't know, probably, but does that mean next year you're gonna be able to do it again, and the year after that, be able to do it again? I'm gonna go, probably not, and you're gonna see your businesses, when their taxes continue to go up, say, yeah, well, I'm probably not gonna be giving more to the schools when I'm paying more in taxes every year anyways. So just another side.
All right. Any more questions from the committee?
I'd say too, like, I didn't comment, we don't know
Any
what's
more
gonna
questions
happen.
from the committee?
No, well, all right, I'll ask a question, do we know what's gonna happen next year with special ed funding? No, we don't, so we might not be in the situation at all next year. I don't. Right, that's possible, it's the,
So do you want to?
That was my question, do we
Do you
know?
want to cut the 5 positions?
Can I ask a question about that? Are the assistants full-time, like with benefits and everything?
Assistant.
Apparently,
Three
aides.
assistants,
Oh,
three aides?
They would be full-time.
They are full-time. Is there any way to change it so that they're part-time positions for like the busiest time of the day or something like that? So there's not benefits and just reducing the expense of that, or?
There could be, that wasn't the recommendation, that wasn't the desire of the voter positions. So, yeah.
Just so you know, Kristen said if you did eliminate the positions, they would still support lower free cash.
Anyone?
I'm gonna make a decision.
All right,
This is so hard, I don't know.
Lisa, meditate us.
Yeah.
Everybody agree with it?
we had three positions, the assistant principal, the BCBA, and the kindergarten aides. Does anybody want to cut any of them?
I don't, but I don't want to show
Okay.
down on town floor.
I don't know why it has to be a
You have to
showdown.
make
Why
a
can't
decision.
people just why can't people discuss? Why does it have to be a showdown?
So let's do that then. Let's
That's
have-
what I think. I think if people
So
are,
is there a motion?
no, don't tell me.
Can I have a motion to approve the Berlin proposal of spending additional funds as presented in Nancy's spreadsheet?
So moved. We take
Lori?
discussion.
Second.
Jess is seconded. Okay, any discussion on that? Specifically Berlin?
I just want to know what we're gonna do next year. Looking at you, Nancy. You tell me. I have no idea. So this is literally like a Hail Mary. Like we're throwing it up there, we're gonna take this money, we're gonna play with cash.
There's also potential legislation changes.
Right.
Okay? There's letter campaigns
Right.
that are ongoing right now, not just with our district, but with a lot of districts. So, no, we don't know what's gonna happen next year.
But this is kind of our best
We know
bet.
what we want for our district going forward. We're responsible to the district and to the students. So that's what we know. We don't know anything else.
Yeah, so I guess this is pretty much the only way that we can, for Berlin, let's put Boylston aside for a minute. For Berlin, this is where we get what we want, what we need.
Not the schools, it's
What the schools need, the additions that we feel are 100% necessary. And have the support of the FinCom.
But if we vote through Berlin, if we vote this, then we have to vote through Boylston with the same numbers, only a deficit. Correct, Mike?
Then we're 100,000, or we drop the
Is
eight.
what is the motion on the floor not? I mean, or the BCBA and
We can't, because once we, well, right, they said
No, you
they,
don't have to cut them, but you can cut something else.
so if we cut like the BCBA, say we cut that, well, how much, that was like 100,000.
she said 23,000 for each
20,
element.
3,750 from each elementary school and 47,500 from the town.
So it would be
So that's filling up a good chunk of that 100K deficit in Boylston. So we take 6
What's our BCBA doing right now? Is she stressed out?
Yeah, remember, she's spread very.
Does she still work here?
Does she still work there?
Did she give her notice? We cannot discuss this at school committee.
Well,
She's stressed
I just
out,
wanna
obviously.
She has I'm gonna guess she has a heavy caseload.
She's stressed out.
Yeah.
You can't have one person with that caseload on
Between 3
three different
schools,
buildings,
yeah,
four
that's too
different
much.
schools.
Go between 3 buildings, it's too
So
much for
the
anyone.
motion on the floor right now is to accept the proposal for the Berlin proposal as presented by Nancy. Is there any more discussion, or would you like to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm an aye as well. Okay, so we'll adjust it for the additional funds from the school choice and the circuit breaker as presented by Nancy.
Are you still processing?
Yeah.
The Boylston side, is there a motion to approve the proposal as Nancy's presented here, with the additional allocation of school choice and circuit breaker funds?
still allowing 106,000 deficit.
Yes.
So moved.
Lori?
Proceed to get to discussion.
Julie? Okay, discuss.
So $100,000 is like $50 in taxes on a $500,000 house? Is it that big of a deal?
I'm not gonna jump on that argument. Some people might be.
I know.
It's give or take that number, which
For a
may or may
$500,000
not be a
house.
lot for someone.
That's an additional 50 on top of what we already tacked on by the way.
On top of what we've already tacked on, which is about, I think we said 300.
Well, no, because with the additional money we're spending, that number changes as well. So without having the assessor here to figure it out, who knows? But
Does anybody know what the tax increase is? Nobody knows the Boylston right now?
it's about, it's gonna come, from whatever it was before, if we're saying it's gonna be about a $50, then it's probably coming down 50 to 75 on the other number that we came up with at our last meeting.
It's
So
not gonna be.
it's a
as high
difficult
as
way
the
to
first.
discuss it and understand it. It's really kind of confusing.
Right, but at the end of the day, that's what people are gonna
Probably not a great
wanna.
argument to say just spend $50 is probably not the best way.
No, but I think that's gonna be a huge, at the end of the
Well, I
day,
see what Megan's
at town floor, that's what, I don't see a lot of people getting up and arguing over $50 on a $500,000 house, so
Some
for people,
that's,
a $500,000 house, so I'm talking people that have like $300,000 house could be $20. So yes, $20 could be a lot of money on an annual basis. But I just don't see that being a fiery argument versus $1,000 or $500.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? The smaller we get that increase, I think the less it becomes a fight and the more it becomes
An understanding.
an understanding, and I don't think it's something that we can ask for every year. And I don't know how we're gonna, again, I look at the Boylston School Choice Fund, we are literally going to deplete our fund. So if
Yes,
there is an
eventually, no
emergency,
matter what it is.
I know, but if we don't have a BCBA, which we definitely need, or we don't have those aides in kindergarten, like, that's the hard part, is that it's really hard because.
yes, oh my God, I know,
And the vice principal's 125,000,
yeah.
and that's all voted, well, 65%, yeah, voted, sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
Did you
yeah.
say? FinCom.
Yes. So, yeah.
So,
He's not.
first of all,
It's not, sorry. Karen says, right.
so we do appreciate it, all the hard work this committee does. We don't take it lightly. We certainly don't know the ins and outs of all the numbers that you all are dealing with. We thank you for that. And so when we say we don't support everything you want, we don't do that lightly. But I think it's really important to listen to Nancy when you say, what do we do next year? And she says, I don't know. I mean, if you approve a budget or a deficit this year, what are you going to do for your budget next year? How are you going to pass, you're talking over a 9% increase on your budget this year. You pass that with a deficit, increasing even more. And then next year, your budget goes up to 9%, another 9%, plus your deficit from this year. How are you going to pass that? How are you going to explain that to your residents? It's not just about advocating for the kids. It's about being fiduciary responsible to your community as well. And I have kids in the school system. I want to have the best school system we can have as well. But part of advocating for the school is also negotiating to come up with a compromise for the entire town. And I think that's an important thing to understand. The other point, and to reiterate that it was Matter said that every year at the town meeting, I've been in town for 13 years, been on the finance committee for 4 years. Never in the 14 years that I've been at the town meeting has anybody had even a question or comment about the overall budget, which is the last vote at every meeting. However, we had a $15,000 trailer for the speed truck for the police department. That was like a 45-minute discussion that the finance committee actually had to approve on. I would shudder to think what the discussion is going to sound like on a school budget that isn't approved by the selectmen and the finance committee. I think it's a road that would be very dangerous to go down for our town.
Yeah, no, that, take that to heart. I think that's to Megan's point. We're already going in with a close to $300,000 deficit. This, what we have is bringing that down, I think is what you were trying to say.
Yeah, so I don't know, I need to respond to that, because here's the deal, yeah, that's Boylston, but in Berlin, we're still eating away at our reserves, or we fire teachers. Those are our choices. We fire teachers, or we eat into our reserves, because that's what their FinCom is asking us to do. That is not a rock and a hard place, that's an impossible decision. You know what I mean? Because I know the reserves are gonna get depleted. So I used to do corporate budgeting for a living, so I totally understand that. It makes me nervous. If we have an emergency, what are we gonna do? But it's just that it's like an impossible decision to say, you know, so yes, in Boylston, if we say, all right, we're just gonna do level, we're gonna let those kindergarten teachers suck it up and maybe they can get a volunteer program going. And yeah, there's definitely ways to, but that's not the case in Berlin. So we'd have to go completely back to the drawing board with Berlin if we're gonna take that approach, which I don't disagree with. But I just don't think they're willing to play that type of ball like you guys are. And that is the other hard piece for anyone listening out there, is that it's not just us, it's we're working with 2 towns and 2 different populations of people.
So
So,
if you
anyways.
look at 65% of a vice principal position, it's 81,250. And so that would take away the most of the deficit that we're looking right now, of 106,000.
The vice principal.
So the motion right now is to approve the numbers as presented by Nancy in this proposal.
But we can make an amendment if we want.
You could make an amendment, we just approved the Berlin side.
We did, and that includes the vice principal. But we can make another motion,
Are we
right?
within 10 minutes? Can we? You're within 10 minutes of the vote.
I mean, if there's something you want to discuss, go ahead.
I don't know, Julie. What do you think, Julie? I know Julie thinks.
I know, and you know, and it's,
No more discussion? Going once?
I mean, we have to, it has to be sustainable, you know.
Yeah, I don't like eating into the school choice funds.
So I mean.
We're already taking school choice
Yeah, we
funds. This is just additional.
For the
So,
deficit.
It's for the deficit, yes.
No, I totally, yeah, but it's this, you can't sustain taking, was it, sorry, Mike,
You
was
can't
it
sustain-
50,000 a year, Nancy?
You can't sustain 14% increases in tuitions in the district, you can't sustain 9% inflation, you can't sustain additional unfunded mandates from the state, you can't sustain increasing insurance and increasing electricity, and you can't sustain it. No, I think this entire state and country, I think, is in a world of shit come fall. But here we are, this is what's in front of us.
Yeah, we're like, this is gonna be crisis mode. I don't know that people understand what's gonna happen if we have
They
to cut
don't, because we
teachers
don't
too.
have financial literacy in our schools.
Well, no, it's just, I'm in that school a lot, and I can't even fathom cutting one teacher.
So
I
there's a motion right now to accept this. Do you want to discuss it further, or would you like to vote?
I don't know that I'm comfortable going against what, in Boylston, I'll put it out there, I think I've been to 2 town meetings. I've lived in town 12 years. So I don't have that knowledge of how town meeting runs. I went 1 year to vote for the schools. One of my neighbors said, everyone get out and you gotta vote for the schools. It was a school budget year, and it passed. But I believe FinCom approved the budget. So I'm concerned about not being in lockstep with FinCom on the Boylston town floor.
So if we don't approve this that is presented right here, then what will go to town meeting is a deficit of 270,000.
So I think we'd have to make a motion to approve this and then make an amendment to that.
Yeah, all right, so
Correct?
let's,
Like, so
yeah.
we have to pass it.
So this
and
is
then
the
we have to make
discussion,
an
so
amendment.
if you wanna do the vote,
No, we have to make it now.
What would you amend?
Would the amendment be this budget without the assistant principal?
Assistant principal.
That's gonna affect the other vote that we just took as well.
Yeah,
Which is
I
gonna
don't
cause
think we can- yeah, I
a
don't-
circle of death problem for the next
I know,
foreseeable
but
4 hours.
I mean, there is, I think, right, Robert's rules, if you're within 10 minutes of the vote, you can take a 2/3 majority vote to retake the vote. That happened in the spring meeting.
So there's a motion on right now to accept it as presented. Is there any other discussion or?
You have to get some action on that motion or?
Yes, we're in the
No, we're in
motion, we're in the motion right now.
We're in the motion
Discussion.
to approve it as is.
As presented.
As presented.
Yep.
And within the discussion, can we make an amendment?
Yes.
I so moved to make an amendment to eliminate the vice principal position at the middle high school from the current.
Jess made a motion. Second?
All right, I'll second it so we can get into discussion.
Okay, discuss.
You don't want to, but
No, I could discuss this at length. I love Tohoto. I do. I like everything about it. I think our middle school is floundering.
We're losing one.
Completely honest.
But
It's not because of, we don't have great teachers, because we do. We need leadership there, and it can't be the leaderships at the high school. It just can't be. They're managing a high school too, and those problems at the high school are big. These little kids in middle school just need to have middle school, and they need leadership to drive that. I've been saying this since I came here. I mean, we lose kids, and I know in Berlin you can make the argument, well, they go to Assabet, they're still our kids, but they're not when you can't make a JV basketball team. You can't make a girls' JV basketball team, we don't have a drama club. We don't have, right now, we don't even have a middle school baseball team. We don't have enough kids.
But they're playing JV, aren't they?
Right, so we have these 12-year-olds playing with these 16-year-olds, that's not even safe. And this is my world, I do sports.
The same situation with music and
Music,
arts.
drama, arts, yeah, and it's not the teacher's fault, it's not the administration's fault, we have to, these are needs, this is a need, this school. And I know people that have been here have said, we didn't have it, why do we need it? Well, times
Wasn't
have
six
changed.
in the elementary school?
Yeah, 6 was in the elementary school, that's true. And times have changed, just times have changed, so the needs are different and they're greater. And we have to just take the bull by the horn.
So there's an amendment in the motion right now to eliminate those two positions. We can discuss or we can vote on
Wait,
the amendment.
eliminate 2 positions or I think she
The BCBA, okay.
I mean,
So,
Oh, no, assistant principal.
yes.
That's okay.
all right, I was gonna say, Julie just went off on this.
I can say so much more. But I
Yeah, so
won't.
the amendment is to eliminate the BCBA position. Is there any more discussion?
No, it's the assistant
No,
principal.
assistant principal.
Sorry.
They're not gonna want that.
Yeah, it's been a long, yeah.
It's so hard when you look at the 3-year plan and there were so many things that all the schools need and you could argue at length about any of the bullet points around the budget and it, it's like pulling teeth, like, well, what about BCBA? Like we could, the school needs it all, but if we're gonna already drain or significantly deplete the school choice and the circuit breaker just to meet, I don't know, 106,000 deficit is huge, and if we can't get the FinCom to agree, we're not gonna get any of it if the town's not gonna support it, at least on the Boylston side. So,
I'm just suggesting that should be, I didn't mean to cut you off, I hate when people interrupt me, finish.
I love Tohoto, I love sports and the theater, and, I lived it, I want my kids to live too, and I want to be a good, strong school. But we also have to present a budget that people will feel is fiscally responsible as well as supporting our kids, and so that's why,
Okay, I have a
So-
question, I just have a question, one more question, I promise. All right, so I'm thinking in my head, we had the Fullers come in and they said, they didn't say a number, but they gave us a number, am I allowed to say that number, I don't know.
they did.
They said
75,000, okay, 75,000, so let's say we're able to get this committee up and running and we're able to get some donations, so we get 75,000 from them. there's 75,000 that's already in the capital
Yeah,
budget.
it's two separate, it's contingent
Can
on a
we
lot of
move
things.
that?
It's contingent on a lot of moving parts that are certainly not gonna be worked out in the next 3 weeks. So I don't think we should,
That's free cash.
yeah. it's-
Yeah.
So the vote right now is to eliminate the assistant principal position. A yes vote eliminates the assistant position from the Boylston side of it. I don't know, we'd have to then deal with the Berlin side. A no vote would bring us back to the discussion about the numbers as presented by Nancy.
Can I just ask a question? So if we do get the assistant principal, how quickly would all these things happen? Like drama club and, you know, the baseball team and all of that? Is that like in years or is it like, would
Yeah,
it
it'd
be
be-
like next
yeah.
year, you know, like? all of a
Rebuild.
sudden-
Be an ongoing
Say it's-
rebuilding program.
That person would just be focused on the middle school.
Right.
So that would be their job, so that would, they'd have to get that stuff up and running, so I guess it would depend on who you hired. How quickly they were able to get acclimated and.
It's hard, it's the most expensive position out of the 4 or the 5 positions that we were added on to that level.
And then is that the whole 100? No, it's what?
No, it would be 81, 250.
So we still have a deficit of something, 20-ish.
If we cut 180, then we're even.
You have to make another amendment. Do you want to make another amendment?
Not really. I don't know.
So the vote is to eliminate the assistant principal. A yes vote would do that. A no vote would bring us back to the original motion. All in favor of eliminating the assistant principal? All against eliminating the assistant principal?
Against eliminating us.
Nay.
Nay.
Yeah, so we're gonna vote no or yes on eliminating that. I'll start again. All in favor of eliminating the assistant principal? Vote yes.
Yes.
1. In favor of not eliminating, vote no.
No.
Lori?
I feel like I need to abstain, this is morally
Okay.
difficult for me.
Megan?
I have to abstain, I don't know.
Okay, I will vote no. That's a 2-1 with 2 abstains. How does that work?
No, Lisa.
Oh, Lisa didn't vote, sorry. Lisa.
No pressure, Lisa.
No pressure.
Okay. Guys, this is, stop joking around. This is
No, so
kind of
no,
pretty
but the
serious.
hard part for me is, it really is hard, because I think that we are bleeding students, and that's how we're losing money. We're not getting money from the state. They're all taking off, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and it's not the fault of the administration. It's not the fault of the teachers. It's the fault of it's just a different age group. They need to feel a connection. I
So do
mean,
you
how
want
many,
to eliminate the assistant principal or do you not want to eliminate the assistant principal?
it's very complicated, Mike. I'm serious.
I know it's
I'm
complicated.
having a
but
really
we-
hard time.
it's a-
That's why I abstain.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna start this again, because it seems like there's some confusion. We have an amendment to the motion, which would eliminate the assistant principal. A yes vote would eliminate the assistant principal. We would then have to go back and have another discussion on the Berlin numbers, because the Berlin numbers include the assistant principal at the high. So a yes vote would eliminate the assistant principal. All in favor of eliminating the assistant principal?
Yes.
Okay, against?
I'm a no, I'm against.
Julie?
I'm a no.
Megan?
I'm gonna say no.
Lisa?
I'm gonna say no.
Okay, I'm a no as well.
It's my
So
heart.
the amendment does not pass. We're back to the discussion now, the original motion to accept the numbers as proposed by Nancy with the additional school choice and circuit breaker funds. It would leave a deficit of 106,000. If we approve this motion, we would submit the budget with these adjusted numbers, which show a deficit of 106,880. If we do not approve the motion, our budget stands with a deficit of 270,767. Is there any more discussion?
Nancy, I just don't know if I can see it on here. What's left in school choice after, if,
Line 25 on that.
With this proposal,
yes.
at the end of fiscal year '24, BES will be left with $50,997 to Tohoto would be left with $382,929.
So we literally can't even do this for 2 years.
Not if you.
By- Yeah. We're allocating from Tohoto next year $757,983. To just kind of fiscal year '22, we allocated $293,700. Fiscal year '23, $586,500.
So we,
So it's
So
increased
from
significantly.
22 to 23, it almost doubled.
Yeah.
From 23 to 24, it's about 50%, not even.
For
No, that's less than that.
For '25, I have it forecasted at 500,000, which would drop us to 223,000.
yeah, so we can't do that. We'd have to do the same thing to keep what we, these are positions, so.
In '26, it's dropping to 400,000, which brings us down to 193.
But Nancy, if you put that 757,983 and again for FY '25, we're below zero, right?
Right? Can't do it.
So we can only do this for a year. Or we open up,
Well, after a year, I guess we'll know if the assistant principal is worth keeping or not, won't we? I mean,
Fair point.
I mean, because that would be the argument at the end of the year, did we see a change, did we not? I mean, I don't like the way it happens, but.
So on March 18th, the committee approved a budget, which leaves a deficit of 270,000. Okay, that's, if we do nothing, that's what goes.
the deficit is between the FinCom and the committee.
From what we discussed, yeah. This uses more reserves, which different opinions on that. To have the deficit only 106. So we've already approved 270.
So we'll have a couple 100,000, go back down to see what's left. I'm thinking if there's like an emergency during the year. There's 50 grand to be honest. And it's 250, 2 years.
If we don't do this, it'll be 94. Sorry, 100.
Because we're only taking 50 out of the school choice.
We could always fill up the school choice. We are doing that.
All right. All right.
So the discussion is on this motion. It doesn't sound like there's much more discussion, so if you're in favor of this motion, we will approve the budget as presented here by Nancy with the additional spending from the reserve funds. If you are not in favor of the motion, we will leave it as is with a deficit of 270,000. All in favor of this motion presented as it is to leave a deficit of 106? Lori?
That means we're voting in favor of moving the money on since.
If you vote in favor of this motion, we're gonna.
Yeah, aye.
Okay,
I voted aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Jess? Lori? All right, so the motion passes, so we will accept both proposals from Nancy, and that will be our budget. Sorry, I'm just taking notes. That brings us to business items. We have first read for the Berlin Scholarship. Julie, do you want to say anything about that? The scholarship, Berlin Scholarship. It's a first read on the business items, so it'll be in the drive. It's not in, you can't find it, put it in there. It'll be up for vote next time. B, policy subcommittee items. Lori, what do we have?
Oh, sorry, I just remembered. Policy EEA, pupil transportation. So what we're going to vote on is the approval of a white activity van transportation and written permission slips and then we'll have the permission slip. And, okay, so basically what we normally do is we get a big yellow bus. And it
This is
costs a
for
lot.
field trips?
This is for the field trips. I don't know, I want to make sure Julie and Megan are. I just want you guys to understand the people transportation. Normally when they go on a field trip, they get a big yellow bus, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
So the teachers that are doing the Cape Cod trip are asking if they can drive a white van, let's make sure, I'm sorry, themselves, which they would drive it, there would be six, actually only 6 kids, on this very small field trip. So a couple of teachers, is it 3 maybe, Carol, that would be driving?
Probably 3.
And 6 kids in each one, they would have to provide their driving records and all that, their teachers at Tohoto. And this would save a considerable amount of money, and they'd also be able to drive around while they were on the Cape, because they would have the vehicles there with them. Am I correct with that?
Yes, absolutely, and we had the criteria set up for what they would.
Yes, they would have to show their driving lesson, driving records and things like that. I'm trying to find the criteria.
They have to be CPR trained and also watching as a safety video.
Who would be driving, the adults?
Adults, yeah, the teachers.
Are the teachers already certified for CPR?
Many of them are here at Tohoto. We run the CPR program before, so if they're not certified, typically the fire chief and Boylston will do that training with them. But I think these 2 of them are coaches, and one of them is currently a coach. So they have that backup, they have that training, these particular teachers. It enables them to get the buses, it saves an extraordinary amount of cost to run these trips, and they also for the bus driver to stay over. The cost of room for the bus driver, so they're doing all of that. A couple of years ago, this wasn't, the then finance director and superintendent were not in favor because the vans were larger and more less manageable, I guess.
Yeah.
These are more like your
1,500.
minivans,
Yeah.
in a different configuration. That's what.
Well, and I just wanted to, so Carol said they would watch there's a safety video that they would watch, they would have to be CPR certified, they'd have to, give proof of a safe driving history. And then we would have that in the permission slip so the parents could decide if they wanted to go, their children to go on the bus or not, on the van. But the money savings was still considerable.
With that, I'm just curious.
Nancy, how much would they save for the vans?
I'm just curious, like approximate.
How much will they save in the vans compared to going out?
With the buses.
With the
bus
buses?
Well, it was a couple of years ago, it was $150 to rent a bus to go in town from Boylston Elementary to Tohoto. So from there to the Cape, I don't know, Sally, do you know if those buses would run, trips are running now?
I don't know for that distance.
Yeah.
Plus an overnight stay, plus meals.
Correct, yes.
So they would have a driver, right, for a bus? It would be, it's a huge savings to rent a van. I don't have the figures, but I can tell you that it's
Hundreds, thousands.
they're staying overnight.
2 nights.
Oh, I would say
On the Cape,
up to
in the spring.
1,000 easily.
Yeah.
I would say. The pricing on buses with these trips are skyrocketing.
Plus finding the driver.
Right.
You could drive.
So the bus would have to go there, go back, yeah. It's
It's a regular rental.
Okay, that's fine. So are we voting on that, or is this just a first read? I'm sorry.
Company.
Is this a vote, Mike?
Yeah,
All right.
so you all have your questions? All right. Motion to vote to approve the white activity and transportation written permission slips for the Cape Cod field trip.
So moved.
Lori? Jess? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? All right, that motion passes. The next one is the background check policy, is to just update this policy. It currently includes a Cory check, but to also include SORI, which is sex offender registration. Motion to update policy DDA to include SORI backgrounds. Jess? Julie? Any discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Against? All right, that motion passes. Lori, can you tell us what this first read policy?
Yes, so this is the non-discrimination policy, including harassment and retaliation. We had voted that through. And what we were going to review is the suggested grievance policy for ACAP, but I'm not sure. Yeah. So I just wanted to speak to that. So the grievance procedure was actually sent along with us with the ACAP. And so we were gonna vote on the grievance process, but I see that, I think we still have not decided, Carol, on who the Title IX coordinators would be. We did two, Janelle and Nancy.
Sally.
And Sally, that's what it was, okay. Yeah, so there would be, yes, there would be two. So this is the grievance process that comes along with the Title IX complaints, which is, it explains who, what the terms are, what they would do. And it is compliant with policy ACAB. So it matches up, it's just basically policy ACAB, which we approved, it now puts it into action steps.
All right, so that's our first read.
Okay.
So we'll be voting on that next time.
So reading the AC, it listed Janelle 3 times.
Yes, so we'll have to go back, I think,
That would be changed.
yeah, we'll change that, thank you.
Because I just want redundancy, so like historically, there was someone in charge that was the issue, and so it's really important to have redundancy in that reporting system. So I don't know if there's some way to say within the policy, there has to be 2 different reporters.
Yeah, I think it's in the policy, we'll just update the names. And then KCD, was that separate or part of that?
Just the acknowledgement of KCD, I think there was some question as to whether there was approval. There was an email from Dorothy from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. We were confused with the update of policy, not the update, but they updated the policy, just the language to fit with hairstyles and different things with that. But then we looked at it and thought, in accordance with state law, all grants and gifts to the district shall be reviewed and accepted by the school committee before expenditure or use. So the question was, should we be approving every single grant and everything that comes our way? Dorothy replied by saying, basically, we don't have to approve them individually, we do it through the budget process. So I just wanted everyone to be aware that we were in compliance.
All right.
So there we go.
All right, a motion to approve the program of studies.
So moved.
Lori? Jess, any discussion?
Sad, did a whole lot of red.
Okay. On the Tohoto, I have a discussion. On Tohoto on page 30, under face coverings, that doesn't fit what our current policy is. So we might want to just adjust that to what our current policy is.
That's the handbook one, you're talking about the handbook, this is program of studies.
Am I on the wrong one?
Yeah.
Shit. Sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Wrong one. Okay, that's not it.
I don't know.
Program of
The handbook, it
studies.
must be for next time. That's not what's in the handbook one. Oh, maybe that's not. It's not on here.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, there's a little red, that's the number. This is just the program of studies, all right. Yeah.
Has everyone looked at it enough to have a vote on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be reformatted, there was some formatting.
Yeah, just formatting. Yeah, I mean, just it is what it is, I mean, what are we gonna do? We're removing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, we talked about that last time.
Yeah, yeah, I would just reiterate the suggestion of breaking up the middle school and high school. It's just, it's a 102-page document for middle school, it's just.
Any more questions from last time? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? All right, that passes. And motion to accept school choice recommendations.
So moved.
Lori?
Second.
Jess? This wasn't in the drive, was it?
Yeah, it was, everything was in the agenda.
In the agenda.
Yeah, the agenda.
Right.
I had that same issue,
Yeah.
thank you.
I remember looking at it earlier. Any discussion on the school choice numbers?
Okay, so these are recommended at the principal level or superintendent.
So the fourth column is the recommended numbers to add per grade. So just a general question about school choice, Nancy and Carol. You're giving us the current resident students, the current school choice students, and then a recommended school choice number, and then a total number per class. Even after the recommended numbers, the numbers per class are sort of all over the place. 95, 82, 71, 80. Why not just, I mean, we're in a budget situation. Why not just fill them up to be equal numbers of classes?
To 100 per class.
I mean, whatever the number is, but not, I mean, you have a difference of 25, 24 kids in some of these.
We could do that. I want to defer to Sally and how they came up with those numbers. And did you want to speak to that? Why are there different numbers for each class?
Those are just average numbers that we've had over the years, and that's kind of historically what they look like.
So we can do that.
So let's talk about school choice a little bit then. So school choice is we open up the number of spots per class, per graduating class, I guess that you can call it, to students from other towns. So students from other towns would come in and be educated by us, and once they're in, there's no sending them back. They're our students. And we receive how much per year, per student? 5,000? And so in our budget, if it's at the Honto is anywhere, what is it, 18, 19, 20,000 per student we're spending? And we're collecting 5. So that helps the budget. We just had a long conversation about running those numbers down. What does it do to the school, to the teachers, to taxpayers, as you have here, resident students? I mean, I like money, but so for example, 6th grade, you have 95 students. In 7th grade, you have 82. So what if we added 13 students to 7th grade, made 2 classes of 95, get another $85,000 per year? What does that do to the 7th grade class of Boylston students?
I guess the question is, what's the average
Yeah,
class
what
size
would you
right
say
now?
is the best, do you have a number, I don't even know if you're doing that, if there's a number that works better, like in the 80s or in the 90s for the amount of staff that you have and the amount of classes that you teach?
I can tell you from scheduling all the middle schoolers every year that when we have a smaller 6th grade class that comes in, everybody gets the electives they want, the class sizes are smaller, we can even them out better. The bigger they are, the more difficult that becomes, the higher the class is.
In the high school, I mean, in terms of like, cause 9th grade, 71 and 84 in 12th grade, I mean, is there? I guess that's true,
Is-
there's
yeah.
smaller electives.
Is there less of a risk in high school? Does that help the classes?
You know, the high school classes are so different from middle school, the way the middle school is set up.
Yeah, because they can mix the grades together.
Right,
Yeah.
right, so it actually, that kind of thing impacts the middle school more. When you have like.
So
We
in
had
9th,
95 coming in, that's big.
you what?
The amount of 6th graders that are coming in next year, that's a big thing.
It's enormous, it's 95 without
Yeah.
a school choice. But I'm looking at the 9th grade, so we're suggesting 10 school choices would bring it up to 71. Is there room to add more there, or is there a reason why you were a little, like, could we do 15? It would still be the smallest, well, it would be, yeah, I guess 11th grade would be one short, because it would be 76 instead of 75.
Yeah, I guess the concern is that a lot of our elective teachers teach both middle school and high school. I just was thinking about a lot of different things there, you know, and just looking at how things were historically done and just trying to be consistent.
So continuing to look at 9th grade, Lori, so you're proposing 10 additional school choice, plus there's already 13 there in that class. So that's 23 school choice kids who would come from any town, Worcester, Clinton, Hudson, are we limited on the towns that we take? No, so any town in the state. So that's 23 students from out of the district versus 61 current residents. So that's over a third. Over a third of that class would not be from Berlin or Boylston.
How many current eighth graders do we have that would become 61 ninth graders next year?
I don't know how many kids are going to Alpha yet.
Okay, you don't have to
They haven't been accepted yet.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
So that current resident 61 is your 61 eighth grade right?
Yeah, I don't worry about it.
Yeah, that,
I can
I think
tell
the
you,
number's wrong.
except for Assabet Valley, 7 applications were received. That was probably 3 weeks
From the
ago.
current eighth grade right
Yeah.
now? So out of that 61, you have 7, is my reading this right? The ninth grade, 61, those are our current eighth graders, is that right?
So that number, 71 is off, I think it should be 84.
No, no, I'm looking at current resident, 9,
Yep.
61. Those are our eighth graders right now.
Yes.
And now you said 7 are Assabet applicants.
Applicants.
Right, okay. And we're doing the same for St. John's and.
No idea. Yeah.
Wow.
That class is gonna be.
so
That'll be
there's
smaller
a
than
question on the
the
ninth
previous.
grade.
Yeah, I think 71 is wrong.
Is 71 wrong, is the 10 wrong, the 13 or the 61? Because the numbers don't add up.
61 plus 13 plus 10 is not 71.
It's 84.
Right, that number is.
So is the 10 suggested, is the total number is incorrect?
The total.
Total's probably wrong.
Yeah, so that's that total.
All right, I just want to make sure that the suggested number is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that
So
makes sense.
for ninth grade, we've got over a third of the class is from out of town.
And most of Tohoto is gonna.
And so we have a problem right now with the towns not wanting to fund our own kids. But now we're asking to fund a third of other towns' kids.
Well, it's filling empty seats, right?
It's filling empty seats, but it's still taking resources and attention and time from teachers away from resident students. And I don't know what types of services those kids need, if none of them need any additional, or what. When it comes to taking school choice students in, is there a selection process or is it just random whoever applies? Is it a lot? Yeah, is it a lottery? Is it who's taking?
To be honest with you, this is my first year doing it.
You know, I'm asking to everybody.
It's a lot.
So it's a lottery, so there's no sort of selection criteria whatsoever. You can't take
It's a lottery.
honor students, you
No.
can't screen out for behavioral issues or anything like that.
I know.
You can't discriminate.
Okay, so
And
it's
we
just,
always get enough. We have too many.
Oh, yeah, there's more applicants than.
so more applicants.
So we could have like 50 kids.
Question, can you get an out-of-district placement through school choice?
Yep. Sorry. Yes. you
Okay,
can.
that's a really important question, no,
Well,
thank you.
however, we would not be fiscally responsible for another district placement.
Okay.
That
If it was already in
would
place.
go back to, that cost would go back to,
Not even if it wasn't in place. Like, if there's school choice, we get 5,000 as a minimum. They have a special ed increment, which basically covers their costs, and so.
So if they come into the
They
district,
come in, we're getting 5,000, if tomorrow they go out, 2 days later, they go out of district placement, that out of district placement is gonna be an increase to our school choice money. We're gonna pay the bills, but
So-
our school choice
Can I
funds,
speak?
the other town is going to pay it or we're going to pay it from Berlin and Boylston?
we're gonna pay it, but our school choice funds will be reimbursed. It's a
One for
year-
one?
It's a year late, and again, it's.
So it's a cash flow issue, so is it a 1-for-1 reimbursement in that case? Or is it the threshold in the 75%?
It's a one-to-one.
Is that correct?
Nancy, what did you want to share? So it's not guaranteed. If you get a child that is special education, you can have increased funds, and it is not always covered. That is not 100%. I've
So
had this
there's-
happen in the past.
Is there any way to know that before we
No.
make the decision? No, okay.
You will get additional funds. Don't
Just
get me
maybe not
wrong. You will get
100%.
additional funds, but it is not entirely covered because you don't always know the needs until the child comes into play.
Okay, so it's a
So
risk.
it can be a little risky.
suggestion to decrease
Yeah.
that number?
The recommended school choice number there?
It doesn't read right anyway, the total, so it's 84, right? 80?
Yeah, it would be 80.
Right, which makes more sense.
Should be more in 9 total. Should be 84, not 71.
Correct, okay.
Right, grade 9, yeah. Yeah, just-
Change it? Yeah.
that's just, that's just
Nicely
a,
done, Carol, nicely done.
that's a sheets
Sorry,
and talks
right here.
issue, it's not an
Right.
actual issue. So that's 25 additional school choice recommended next year. Out of, I don't know, do that math real quick.
I think the hard part is not even the number, the hard part is you never know what you're gonna get, so you might pull, I mean,
That's hard, that's always been that way.
Yeah.
It's just the way school choice operates.
it makes sense.
We've got some great
Yeah.
students in too. that are-
Had a couple.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like you're talking about the total versus how many school choice kids we have.
Grade 9 total is 84.
Oh, yeah, I'm not against school choice at
The
all.
recommended
It's nice.
is 10.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, 11th grade, 75 then.
Yeah, it's still it's still a swing, grade to grade.
so this brings in 10, 25. This brings in $125,000. Is that, is the math right?
Yes,
Got the current numbers.
5,000.
I have a question. So school choice buckets are all separate, but yet we're a regional district. So seeing that we're not adding at the elementary levels, like, is there a consideration of making that school choice bucket a district bucket?
Are you allowed to do that?
I don't know.
Do that.
Okay.
You can, so for the elementary schools, you cannot do that, but for Tohoto, you could.
Okay. Oh, interesting. I won't ask why.
Meaning Tohonto's school choice funds could be allocated to a different town
For emergency.
for emergency use,
According
if need be. Not right now.
different school, yeah.
Because it's a regional.
Bingo, gotcha.
So we have a motion to accept the school choice recommendations. Any further discussion?
I mean, 11th grade is 5 short of
I agree.
the average.
I agree.
$100,000 more.
And that's a 75 to small class. So why don't we put 5 in there?
Sally, if we were to add 5 more to 11th grade, does that make you panic? Okay.
Is that more like you get like AP Bio or one of the smaller classes, enough kids to run that class, or that doesn't work that way anymore?
It could,
It goes by.
it might
Yeah,
differ.
I'm just, yeah, the more specialty classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
We
I was
haven't,
thinking.
so we haven't always added to that grade level, I was just, it was a little low, so.
Yeah.
Suggestion.
Do kids, I mean, do they apply to that? I don't know if you know that, but like, do 11th graders come in to Tohoto?
I've actually never seen the whole, the whole, I couldn't tell you, to be honest with you. I mean, I can tell you after this year. But.
So
yeah,
for these-
that process.
For these numbers here, it ranges anywhere from 15 to 40% of each class is not Berlin Boylston students at these numbers. Just throwing that out there I mean,
I wish we could get, so the cost to educate a school choice kid, I'm sorry, Lily, is not the same. Do you know what I'm
it's
saying?
the exact same to educate every kid on.
There's
unless
fixed
different
costs,
services.
though, that are going into the per pupil expenditure. So whether we have 1,000 kids in the building, well, I guess this building can't hold 1,000. Whether we have 750 kids in the building or 650 kids in the building, the cost to pay the heating bill is the same, the
The
cost.
financial cost is the same.
Yeah, there's huge costs that are the same, right? You might need more books, you might need 1 or 2 more teachers, hopefully not. But a high school class can swing, like it could have like 5 kids, or it could have like 35 kids, and I would think a high school class with 35 kids would be okay, I don't know. I don't have anything that's.
Do you need to get those 25 new kids Chromebooks?
Okay, well, all right, so yeah,
Yeah, you have to get anything you get a resident, you get, yeah.
but it's an increment, what I'm saying is that I don't think the cost is 20,000, I think it's probably like, is it more than 5 or less than 5? I don't know.
Yeah,
I forget to
financially,
have that info.
Financially,
Yes.
the teachers already paid for, they're there. It's, a teacher has 10 kids in class, she gives 1/10 of her attention to each kid. You have
Yes.
3 kids in the class, she's no longer giving, it's not a one-for-one
Yeah.
example, but you're taking,
The
we're claiming that we already have a problem with our students being able to compete after high school, after graduation, getting into top universities. Why is that? I don't know. Does this help? I don't know. Maybe I think you're saying it does help. But if the kid is not trying to get into an Ivy League school, if the kid is struggling and needs extra attention from the teacher, and we dump 5 additional kids into that class, can that kid get the attention that he needs or she needs?
Right.
Well, but those kids would fund the vice principal at the middle school, and so thus eventually really not our high school population.
Right, yeah.
So,
Yeah, because I mean, if that's the only way that we're gonna be able to tap in and get things that we want is by dipping into the school choice.
So on that track, then using that logic, why not jump every class up to 100?
Tondo couldn't.
That'd be a lot.
I mean, historically, the class has been like 75, or, you know, my.
Or even
grade class was
capacity.
67.
67, 75, we've got 95 right here in 6th grade, 82, 85, 84, 80.
I don't think,
We're already-
I wouldn't feel good about 100 each. I think.
Oh, 95, because we've got 95 in 6th grade.
Oh, don't
I mean, it
worry,
would-
that'll take you.
So that's big.
95 already makes me.
Yeah.
When I saw that.
Unless that's
75,
principal.
80.
So let's just add the 5 and 11th and call it a day.
Somebody want to make an amendment
I'd like
to
to-
this?
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. So the motion was to approve the school choice, to approve 25 school choice kids, right? So I'd like to make an amendment to the motion and approve 30 school choice kids,
With the 5 being.
with the
Additional
5 being
five.
in the 11th grade, 5 additional.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Anyone want to discuss it? All in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
All right, that amendment passes, so the number is 30, so we need to approve now the motion for 30. Any more discussion on that? All in favor of approving 30 school choice?
Aye.
All right, that motion passes as well.
Yeah.
The next one here, it looks like it goes under school choice, but it's actually a separate business item to, could I have a motion to accept the high school student council check for $150 donation and pass it to the Tower Hill Botanical Gardens from the Clinton Savings Bank.
So moved.
Lori?
Second.
I heard Julie first. Anyone want to discuss this?
Thank you.
Give some background to it? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion passes, or anyone against it? I thought I heard everybody.
Clinton Savings Bank is really, I meant to say this during the discussion, they're really good to us.
I like
Yes.
the savings bank.
Yeah,
Very good to us.
They're wonderful.
Motion to approve the 2023-2024 school year calendar.
So moved.
Lori?
Second.
Julie? Anyone want to discuss it?
There seems to be a lot of PD in the spring, which doesn't seem historically true. I just didn't know if that's because there was half days in the fall.
Didn't the teachers ask for that though? Didn't they say that they didn't like having all their professional?
We're gonna have another conference in just in
March.
2024.
Yeah.
We're having a conference, that's why,
In March.
yeah. We added that, that was part of the teacher's contract.
Oh, that's right.
It's just one extra half day, I think, right?
Yeah.
It's because New Year's Day falls on a Monday.
But there's a PD in January before.
We always had a PD in January and one in March.
And then.
The only add-on is the half day in February. I think. We just had one in March, didn't we?
We try to avoid them in the late spring because of the.
Oh, we had one like a week ago.
Oh, that makes sense. With the testing schedule, you can never guarantee, yeah.
But,
That's
yeah,
why
it's
it's
not
not
easy.
easy.
All right, Any more discussion on that one?
This is good.
I do like the start time, I will say, is it like 4 days, and then 5?
3,
3 days, 4 days, and then
5,
5,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I think that's
Easy to
easy,
do it,
I'm
yeah.
happy.
The teachers too.
Yeah.
All in favor? Against? All right, that passes. All right, so the Boylston Education Foundation bingo nights. They're looking for permission to serve alcohol at their bingo night events. And they are, if we do approve it, they will make sure they get a permit and everything. Carol, before we make a motion on this, do you have any concerns, reservations, comments?
Megan and I spoke about this early on, and I definitely don't want alcohol in the school building. I had a little bit of reservations. I had reservations about it outside, but I think it is managed well. I think that's the key to this. I think we have to see how it goes this year. I think there has to be strict controls around it, who's serving, what they're serving. I don't know if they're.
Yeah. No, so I can talk to it a little bit. So I got a little bit more information. So I'm gonna speak on behalf of the BEF, because I'm part of the group. So, and I'll be really quick. So, we're looking to hire a dog father. He's gonna do a food truck for the hot dogs, and he also is in the process of getting his license from the state to serve alcohol.
He's in the process, or he currently has it?
He doesn't have it, he has the license, he has tip certified people, but he doesn't have the permit from the state. So if he doesn't get it, that would obviously, we would never have him here without a permit. He wouldn't do it, he doesn't want to lose the business. So he's confident he's gonna have it by the date of bingo. But because this is the last school committee meeting before bingo, and then I gotta go to the select board on Monday. So, he would have a separate truck. We were thinking of doing tickets so that nobody would be overserved. Absolutely, the alcohol would not be allowed inside the building. In the event of rain, we would have a tent. We'd either cancel the truck or we'd have a tent and like a little beer garden outside, and people could, if they wanted to go out and have a drink. It depends on like if it was a total washout or if it was just a little drizzly out. But we also have an attorney on BEF, and she's already looked into obtaining a secondary insurance policy, so that we have insurance for serving alcohol as well. So the idea behind it, just so people think, we're really, feedback we got from previous years, bingo was always great, but it was loud, it was very kid-centric, and we're trying to make it more family-centric. So you come out on a Saturday afternoon, you have a drink with your friends, and the kids can run around and play outside. We tried doing it outside last year for the first time. We got really positive feedback. Just because you could kind of, it wasn't so uptight, it was a lot more relaxed, so the kids could go play and parents could enjoy themselves. And we just figured, we have slushies for the kids, maybe have beer and wine for the parents, hopefully entice people to stay a little longer, more people to come, and make it like a family activity. And at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is raise money for these grants.
Are you gonna do a bingo outside this year because weather permitting?
That's exactly what we're doing, yeah. It's not gonna be inside because we will not have the alcohol inside the building.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, it's planned for outside. We don't have a rain date just because I think that's Mother's Day weekend that we have bingo. So if it rains, it would be inside, and either we would cancel the truck. We got a great deal from the dog father. He's not charging us a minimum. So,
So as far as the alcohol,
yeah, we're not
so-
on board for it.
we'll have a motion, I think it should be contingent on making sure everyone involved has all the necessary state and town permits.
Yes.
That the group make sure they have a secondary insurance policy in place covering
BEF.
alcohol, which you just, yes, BEF.
Yes, and the dog father sent me his insurance policy, so he has an insurance policy for his alcohol, serving alcohol as well.
And then a designated area where the alcohol can be consumed, which is absolutely outside the building, maybe even in a roped off area or beer garden, like you said.
He said he could put up a canopy tent. We could do that, but then we usually have tables set out in the parking lot, so it might be tough to just stand there if you have your kids.
And who's gonna check and make sure all of these documents are in place?
So I have the insurance policy right now. It's the Board of Selectmen requires the insurance policy from the dog father. I guess the BEF would be responsible for checking.
So should we say that we need to get copies of all this on file in the central office?
Would you like that?
I would like to do that.
Yes.
I was also thinking, Megan, I wanted to ask you, you may have mentioned this, if we can
make sure that folks are showing their licenses, their.
Yeah, that would be.
Purchase alcohol.
Right, so we could either, if we're gonna give tickets, and I don't know how that works, because we want the people to pay the vendor directly. But I'm sure we can work things out with Mark.
So you said the servers are tip certified? Is that-
They're also certified
is that-
because college employees.
Isn't asking for anything.
I mean, they also have those bracelets that have the 1, 2, 3 tabs on them.
So that's a great idea, Jess. So we've already been thinking about trying to do something like that, so that nobody would be overserved, and we would make sure that it was adults only.
All right, well, how's this for a motion then? Do I have a motion to grant permission to the Boylston Education Foundation, I'll say this slowly to get it correct. A motion to grant permission to the Boylston Education Foundation to serve alcohol at their bingo night event in April 2023. In May 2023. Contingent on all parties having all necessary permits in place. BEF having their necessary insurance in place. That the alcohol server has his state permits. That there be a designated area for drinking, which is outside only, no alcohol in the building. And that all necessary paperwork, or copies of all necessary paperwork, should be given to central office a week before the event, 3 days before the event? A
Yes,
week?
yep,
A
and that'll be the responsibility of the BEF, so it can come from,
Just like prior.
yeah, I'll
A
make
week
sure
prior
you
to
have
the
it,
event.
but, yeah. Yep, I'll make sure.
Do you have that whole thing?
Are you allowed to make a motion, Chair?
I asked for the motion.
So moved.
Thank you. So should I abstain from voting since I voted? Okay.
So Lori has,
I made the motion.
Second.
Julie, all right, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
And I'm
And
abstaining,
Megan is
because I'm a member of the
abstaining.
Boylston Education Foundation.
Good job. Okay, that's all of our business items. Future agenda items, before anybody asks for anyone, I just want to remind everybody, we do need to set the committee calendar for next year. So we talked about two things with there, possibly changing the day, possibly changing the time. I don't know how to handle this, I really don't want to get a long discussion about it right now, but we do need to get it done before June.
Is that on the agenda for next month?
It should be, yeah, so we need to.
But with the tentative calendar on it?
Yeah, so I'll put a tentative calendar out there and then we can discuss it next meeting.
Maybe we should, I don't know if somebody could I don't want to assign Lisa anything else, but, or maybe I don't know, maybe if I have time after tax season, I could do it. Just poll people, what's the.
No, it's not an open meeting, Megan, you can't do that. You don't want to get.
Just
into
what
situation.
is, I'm just saying, I thought we talked about Tuesday
How
afternoons.
about, we talked about keeping it Tuesday or changing it Tuesday, and then we kept talking about keeping it 6:30 or changing to an earlier time.
Well,
Earlier.
we were
Oh, we discussed it.
running from sports.
Yes.
It would be for next school year.
Same, but honestly, you can't even plan for that because it's gonna change season to season.
So why don't
Yes.
why doesn't the policy committee take a stab at it? And
All right,
we'll put something out there.
sounds good.
All right. And then,
Yeah, it's only gonna be once a month, though, Jess. so-
the other thing, we're gonna go into an executive session soon, and then we're gonna come back, but I wanna get this. The upcoming meeting date is May 16th, would be our next meeting. However, town meetings are May 1st. If the budget doesn't get approved, we're gonna need to go through that process that we discussed with notice periods, additional meetings. So I'd like to propose that we set right now a meeting for May 2nd as our budget hearing if needed, and our regular meeting for May. Then we can make sure we get the necessary notices out beforehand in case it's needed. Because there's a 7-day window, a 45-day window, a 60-day window, it's convoluted. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, so you'd have to post on Friday for that meeting.
We post, I mean, it's just about a month away, so there's plenty of time to get the postings out. It's a 7-day newspaper notice and all that, yeah.
then you can cancel. That's my only thing, if town meeting goes more than one night. Which it could very easily do.
Yeah.
So it's no problem to cancel.
The school
No.
committee meeting, okay. So
Well,
let's,
we'd have to then, if it doesn't pass or whatever night it does end up on, we'd have to have something.
Could the starting time be postponed
or we could meet earlier.
or later? I mean,
Well, no, this would be to react to a budget not passing.
Oh, valid.
because if the meeting goes for Tuesday night, could we hypothetically?
Well, if the budget hasn't passed or not passed by that point, there would be no point for the meeting,
I think just suggesting having a later meeting time
for us.
for us.
Well, so I'm saying, like, if you post a meeting for 6:30 on Tuesday, May 2nd,
Mhm.
let's say the meeting goes through Monday and then continued on Tuesday, is there any penalty or whatever legality issue to just postponing the meeting to the end of the town meeting?
No, because you need notice period.
Oh,
Time's
yeah.
town meeting, 6:30.
You need notice periods.
Yeah, you're right.
You
So
can't,
should we meet on Wednesday, May 3rd?
I think that's the safest bet, just
Yeah.
in case, I think so too. Or you could post for Tuesday and Wednesday, and then you're covered.
I like that.
All right, let's do it. We could do Tuesday and then Wednesday as needed or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
all right.
post both, or just set a reminder to cancel.
All right, that's good. Does anybody have any future agenda items?
Snacks. No,
Yeah.
I know, okay.
All right, could I have a motion to enter executive session to discuss negotiations with respect to the union, BBEA, and non-union personnel, Carol Costello, and to return back to open session?
So moved.
Second.
Julie and Megan, Jess,
Sorry.
there's a motion to enter executive session.
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
Lisa, I'm an aye as well. Okay, we're going into executive session. Thank you, everybody.
Are we coming back?
We will be coming back, yes.